Welcome, Giga. Nice to see you again. And welcome to any other viewers that are here. Give me a sec.
Hey you all, Carpetbagger here, coming to you live from the north, more specifically Alliance, Ohio. And even more specifically than that, I'm in front of the Troll Hole, the largest collection of trolls and troll-related items in the world. And personally, I've had a tumultuous history with trolls. You know, I used to think trolls were out to get me. I used to think they were out to call my job and to post stuff about me on the internet. But after meeting Ick, the Troll King at Rock City, it gave me a new appreciation for trolls and what they're really all about. I think trolls may be the most misunderstood thing in our world. So I'm going to step foot into this Troll Hole Museum, and I hope you follow me. Troll mobile right there. This little garden with a troll riding a dinosaur. We have a spaceship beaming up trolls while these trolls try to turn this alien into a troll. Apparently, Martin Sheen is a bad troll.
So all his trolls say R-U-S-S. They all the same charismatic grin. His, it was about the costumes. So if you notice, bellboy, stockbroker. So who has the ones?
They're dressed like alligators, and these are some space trolls. I like their silver skin.
Give it back. You have to give it back. They make nice babies, don't they?
Wow. They're warrior
nice
trolls.
Right?
Look at they're like
Patch.
mutated. The Cyclops troll.
The boy toys on the wall over there that he's filming.
These are like unibrow trolls.
Back.
Oh, some muscular ape trolls. That's a He-Man troll.
So which part did you like best?
But these are those action trolls from the gift shop. Teenage Mutant Ninja Trolls. Troll, I guess, is getting a facial. Uh-oh, that troll's got a broken leg. Uh-oh. Extra theory for dungeon trolls.
In Denmark, feel that? That's real Icelandic wool. It's longer and softer as opposed to the synthetic fiber that you see on the more recent trolls. Yeah. So these are the ones that the troll collectors collect, because that's real sheep's wool straight off the sheep. I like to say my collection is the largest, but it's not the best because I tend to collect the cheaper ones. I called it the damn company because they knew people. Because remember, trolls are evil, so it's a play on words. The damn trolls.
Love these.
So the church.
Elephant trolls right there.
Well, those are the Yetis.
Yeti trolls.
And lo and behold, there was some space in the employee bathroom. Everybody's in there, but
oh wow!
Over 500 trolls in the employee bathroom.
Oh, there's a giant troll on the toilet.
That is Elvis. If you recall Elvis' last performance.
Oh wow!
Most popular was the pencil topper. So if you recall, do you remember playing with these?
I do.
My resident artist said these are the original fidget spinners because after you got done playing with the hair, you remember that?
I think those would have been banned in my school after.
Oh, there's many a teacher that said they had to let go. My husband says I don't need any more. It's the Wishnick truck.
Oh, it's a little
Wishnick truck in there.
Little troll truck.
I've got it off eBay. So we have our nursery full of our infant trolls. Collaborations they did, but they didn't like the way they took it. Was like the
that troll's in prison. Some clown trolls.
So our rocker trolls will be moved.
These are all music-based trolls.
Yes, there's Rod Stewart. There's Uncle Sai, the Korean fellow there. Of course, Michael Jackson, anatomically correct.
Gosh, these are all medical. Trolls looks like they're working on Barbie back there.
Yep, so Trolls were one of the top 10 toys of the 20th century, but they were beaten out for being the most popular doll by no other than Barbie.
Huh.
So it looks like they're trying to help her there, but if you notice her arms, rigor mortis has already set.
Oh no. And then these are all astronaut and alien trolls.
The Rest Company had a series of 2 different series. There's one, the Gleep, the little guy in the top, and then these other funky, strange looking ones.
Oh wow. Yeah, there's some real weird ones in there. Where's the dinosaur trolls?
Down
Dino
here.
trolls here, they came
Oh,
in the
yeah.
box. Then they had Jurassic Island trolls because everybody had to get in on the trolls. The Dino trolls were the cute ones.
There's a big one right there.
But lots of image of a giant troll. The sun touched him, he turned to stone. He became part of the mountainside landscape. So this is... Trolls could have up to 20 heads. So I took these 2 iconic images and did a 3-headed troll mountain.
Oh wow. A petrified troll.
So by the troll hunter, he's shipped us one of the forest trolls. Lives under the deck. He does like to escape, so he breaks out at night and
Oh my goodness.
runs around eating junk food.
There's like real deer carcasses.
Yeah, and like some roadkill.
Oh my goodness.
He's back hiding in the cave. He'll come out about 5.
One starts next to like in my house.
Oh wow. The troll is living in there, devouring carcasses and possibly children.
Mountain troll comb. The mountain troll comb so everybody can see because it's got 7 really cool dioramas in it. Here's another whole row of Easter.
Look at that. We got a Jewish troll
Around the forest for the eggs.
and an Islamic
Yes,
troll.
and then all the baby
Holding
trolls
hands.
for Easter.
Egg-shaped troll for Easter. That looks like we got
This
some
whole row of Easter
some
eggs
vampire
too.
trolls.
Scandinavian countries of Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. Thousands of years ago. Do you think they still care about them? Yes.
I believe so.
It's like their national mascot, but they don't look anything like what we've seen. Let's take a look. We're gonna look to my right.
Troll.
The original iconic troll dolls were these here.
Oh.
Wood and rabbits, or Icelandic wool, or rabbit's fur. So you can see these primitive materials. These are Reisler trolls from Germany, Raoul trolls from England, Viking pinecone trolls, and then they became more human-like, including snowboarding. These trolls know how to keep up with the time. They know how to
Snowboarding
evolve.
troll. Oh, is this troll making moonshine?
Yes. So these trolls here were done by Rolf Lindberg. So here's Rolf. He was a botanist. He went out in the field studying plants, and lo and behold, he soon started doing illustrations of trolls because you can see clearly was one. Fawny trolls from Finland by the Kaliski family, which evolved into very peculiar Moomin trolls.
These look like big hippo, like white hippos, or
Okay, so you want to see the missing link between these funky creatures? There he is.
okay.
He sold for more than 200 on eBay, so I didn't get him, but I just printed the picture of him because that evolved into this. But you can see clearly how he resembled those. They're really popular in Japan and Korea. They have Moomin tea houses. In Finland, they actually have a Moomin land where you can go kind of like a
Oh wow.
My newest piece was that one there. I got such a good... If you go to buy a troll doll souvenir there, they're going to show you these. 4 fingers, 4 toes, the tails, and the weird creepy. Yeah. So here's all our oversized troll dolls. We have some custom ones, the giant Russell
Oh, that
on the
one's
top
huge.
shelf, the giant Wishnicks in the middle. Trolls in the holidays are so tight that we have a special tour in December. It's called The Santa, Really a Troll. Instead of our usual script, we argue a pretty good case that Santas and trolls are one and the same. It's by this curtain because behind it is Grilla. Grilla is the most dominant troll in Iceland. She's mean, she's evil, she's nasty. She's been there for thousands of years. She's here for the Santa thing because she plays such a large role at the holidays, but I don't want to scare the kids.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
She has horns like a devil, hooves like a devil, 15 tails, and those are no ordinary stains, those are blood spots. because her favorite meal is the naughty children.
Eats naughty children.
Naughty and nice list.
Oh my god.
She has 13 bad boys. She had 3 last week, but she ate them all and she was bored with them. So I mentioned there was forest trolls and water trolls. They teach children don't go near the deep water. Before you go out in your fishing boats, you want to throw a hunk of meat out, keep the trolls happy. You don't want to feed the bad trolls, like on the internet, when you talk back to people that are talking bad. Yeah. They do like to kidnap humans, and they like to interbreed with them and marry them. Trolls make really good spouses as long as you treat them well. If you mistreat your troll spouse, they'll turn very mean and ugly. I told that once, and a man turned to his wife and said, "Honey, is that what happened to you?" Matter of fact, if you're out late at night and you come across the trolls having a party and laughing and singing, dancing and drinking, they'll throw a little magic spell over you and you won't be able to stop singing and dancing and drinking until you pass out. And the next morning when you wake up, you stumble home and you let your spouse or your family know it was the trolls that kept you out all night. So the most famous troll fairy tale with the
Billy Goat's Gruff.
3 Billy Goat's Gruff. So trump, 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 as you dare, cross the bridge, past the sleeping troll, well of broken dreams, deep in the troll mountain where the troll can rain.
This big fish right here.
That's a troll trophy.
A troll trophy.
See, everything with the trolls is a little skewed. Izzy! You can see the knights have some pretty nice armor. A really nice shield up there, but then of course the trolls.
Oh wow.
This is the perforator.
They're not playing around.
And this is the Cleveland.
Cleveland.
So
Yeah.
you can see it really sturdy. So the purpose of a box wars is to have a battle where you break and destroy all your cardboard armor. But this section of the museum we recoined last year is the Troll Hole of Fame, and this is our Troll Hole of Fame football field, where we play the Troll Bowl. It's a recreation of the Tom Benson Stadium in Canton and just stadium, but it gives you the chance to get generic troll dolls, customize them to represent your team, submit them to be in the Troll Bowl. I thought that was a mistake on the O, but the O's actually hair.
Oh, it's got a
He drew
little.
a little hair
troll
on it. This
hair
is
on
a
it.
10-year-old did this.
What's that one with the box on his head?
Well, this is Go Browns, but they were doing so badly, she put a box of shame on it. But now they're doing better. He could come out of the... Because I take objects that were discarded and trollify them.
These little carved coconuts.
That's a troll with his brains blown out.
Oh, it's a train with his. Did you say a troll with his brains blown out? What's this one right here? It's anger management.
Okay, so my ex, we didn't have a very peaceful split up, and he ended up being forced to go to anger management class. And then when he moved out of the house, he left this troll with a nail through its heart on that anger management certificate on the wall.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of a little message to me. So he came to visit. So we have the Guinness World Record here, the newspapers, and everybody talks about it a lot. We get tons of media coverage. And then people spontaneously started mailing me their trolls. Sometimes one, sometimes a box of them. We say, please give my troll a good home. And we add those trolls to the collection, or we customize them. These were actually customized by the Troll Lady of Michigan, she calls herself. Troll dolls, and the creepiest one, I think, is that little one there. It's not a My Little Pony. It's got skinny little arms, and the zombie one's pretty good.
Where's the zombie? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And if you look, it's even got exposed spine in the back.
Oh, that's some attention to detail.
Yeah. Copies of copies of copies.
These are all different Trump trolls.
Yeah, well, the latest one is the Tweety Boy Trump.
Little Kim.
Supposedly Trump endorsed, I think he endorsed this one. I know he didn't endorse this one because it's anatomically correct.
So this is the Trump-endorsed troll, and he did not enjoy this. This anatomical.
But mostly they're weird, creepy, and misshapen. So this is Magnus and Ingrid, two full-size mascots that represent the troll hole. Magnus here was at state capitol for tourism day.
So you traveled to the state capitol?
Yep, 2 years in a row now we've been invited there.
Oh, Troll 2.
Troll 2 was the best tourist movie of 1899. It was really bad acting. Two main creatures, Branch and Poppy. Branch is played by Justin Timberlake. It's a story of pessimism versus optimism in the face of challenges. DreamWorks got the permission to use a troll-themed movie, but the project sat on the drawing board for a number of years. That's one of the reasons we created this museum. But for women, men, men's ties. So trolls is a Norwegian word. Just like Indiana Jones, we look for evidence of real-life trolls in Ohio. The study of legendary creatures is called cryptozoology. It's an actual science, and we've been to confer with two of the world-renowned cryptologists, one in Portland, Maine, and one in Bishop, Colorado. We let them know that all those big shaggy things that run about in the woods only come out at night are really forest trolls. Steal the human babies, and they'll leave an effigy or a troll baby in its place. And
They switch them out with...
We often get visited by the troll babies. Now they raise those children as if they were their own, take good care of them. But the troll babies that the humans are stuck with, I can always spot one when they come to the museum because those children are always totally out of control. It's a giant troll booger.
The troll booger. Oh my gosh.
And then, I don't know if you noticed when you came in to the right of the door is the tooth and the toenail.
Oh.
So those are significant because if you're out in the woods and you're a hunter, you make sure that you keep your beard trimmed and your fingernails. Because if you lose any of your body parts,
HeroQuest is the best game ever made, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. The best thing about HeroQuest is the miniatures made in the glory days before Games Workshop had been destroyed from within. There is not an inch of pretentious overcomplexity about them. Any man can tell what they are from 500 yards away, and I know this because I've tested it with a team of Russian ex-Soviet scientists. Because they weren't destroyed by idiotic oversculpting, many a young lad got their start in miniature painting, making their first delicate steps with these fine figures. Never mind that one. I ruined that one. Never mind any of that. The best thing about HeroQuest is the gargoyle. It is the finest miniature in the land. Compared to this is rubbish. This is brilliant. This is an abomination. This is a gargoyle. When a young lad saw this miniature, do you know what he said? He said, "Ooh, I've got to get in on that HeroQuest action." And he was right. The best thing about HeroQuest is this tiny furniture. It is unequaled in all the realm. Anyone who owns this furniture but doesn't use it every chance they get, even in unrelated games, is a fool. I myself have begun replacing all of my furniture with HeroQuest furniture. Even the doors. Oh no, Mormons! The best thing about HeroQuest is the cards. What you see before you is the exact optimum number of cards required to play a heroic adventure game. No more, no less. Why, just the other month I was playing in the local international poker tournament, and when it came time to reveal my hand, bam! Heroic brew! And I took home all the winnings, because after all, who's gonna argue? The best thing about HeroQuest is the board. Look at its beautiful, vibrant colours and its perfect square-ish shape. Oh yes, there was never any doubt as to how much space a game of HeroQuest was going to take up, was there? No, sir. But what do modern games give us? Oh, they're obsessed with modular dungeon tiles, and that's terrible. Half the time, it's a complete disaster, as the dungeon immediately veers off the nearest table edge. The other half the time, it expands into a colossal labyrinth far larger than any reasonable table owned by mortal men. Play it on the floor, you might say. Well, what about people with back, neck, and face problems? Ah, you didn't think of that, did you? The best thing about HeroQuest is the quest book, jam-packed with cracking sword and sorcery scenarios, each more different than the last. and none more different than the dreaded blank map, which is used to make your own deadly scenarios. Of course, the only natural response to this is to put a monster in every square, as is the right and privilege of every HeroQuest owner. The best thing about HeroQuest is the box art. Look at it. Magnificent. Painted by the great fantasy illustrator Les Edwards. And it features grand prominence in this particular art book of the man. And well it should, for it is, without doubt, the best piece of art he ever produced. Now, in the 90s, he did argue against that point, but he was quickly shouted down by key luminaries of the era, such as Prince, Bob Hawke, and Reggie Bennett. So it turns out that this was a cracking reboxing all along. But is a single reboxing enough to cover the grand majesty of HeroQuest? No, sir. No, it is not. And that means it's time for another cracking unboxing of HeroQuest. Let's get started. Well, the best thing about HeroQuest is the inside of the box. Look at these cracking instructions for heroic miniature assembly. What with their clear pictures and words, by God. When I was a lad assembling these miniatures, I would have terrible nightmares about an apocalyptic time when highly convoluted miniatures, much more so than this, would come with instructions without words at all and terrible, grainy little pictures and only the loosest interpretation of the word instructions. Oh, it's a good thing that never came to pass. The best thing about HeroQuest is this cracking screen. Not only is it covered with blistering artwork, it is also the finest perch in all the land from which to drop falling rocks on unsuspecting fools in unrelated games. It also prominently features the gargoyle. You can't even tell what this is. This is a gargoyle. The best thing about HeroQuest is the broadsword. Broadsword.
Fire of Wrath.
The best thing about HeroQuest is rolling to move, and you might roll your eyes at this, but it really adds to the drama. Will I trip on a flagstone or leap heroically into battle? Let's find out. Well, the best thing about HeroQuest is ignoring the roll to move rule. It was clearly only included for the junior set, more used to playing snakes and ladders, and not really intended for true masters of the game. The best thing about HeroQuest is the combat dice. No finer set of dice have ever been made in any kingdom. These dice also represent the essential binary which encapsulates all evil beasts in this game. The monsters are either dead or alive. And the symbol of evil looks like a bunny rabbit if you turn it upside down. And that's why you'll hear veterans call them the bunny rabbit dice. Adorable bunny, symbol of immortal evil. The best thing about HeroQuest is the barbarian. Look at the muscularity. You are the barbarian, the greatest warrior of all. And they're not kidding. He throws 3 combat dice on attack by default. Not even the gargoyle can stand up to that. And that's without needing to get the broadsword. A barbarian. Best character in the game by a long shot. And you should all go play as him immediately. Right, now that the peasantry have gone, the best thing about HeroQuest is the dwarf. Ah, yes, the barbarian, strictly for beginners. He is, in fact, easy mode. True aficionados of HeroQuest and masters of the game choose the dwarf. The best thing about HeroQuest is the expansions, which you should immediately discard, because the only true way to expand HeroQuest is with more HeroQuest. It's the only way you can experience such cracking custom scenarios as the dreaded Fortress O' Peril and Gravity Land. And that's why HeroQuest is so great.
What's a gamer to do when you don't have a lot of time but you want to enjoy some fantasy-based tabletop adventure gaming? I mean, jump right in the pit, kick down some doors, hack up some skeletons. When you and your friends just want to skip all the pleasantries and throw some dice without all the trappings of character sheets and alignment and, well, role-playing? I'm Dan Larson and this is the history of HeroQuest. HeroQuest is a fantasy adventure board game created in 1989 by Milton Bradley and Games Workshop. It's the pure hack and slash die rolling manic adventure of Dungeons and Dragons without having to do any homework. Hero Quest is D&D if you speed the whole thing up by limiting the action to fighting and looking for fights. There is far less of a chance of the game going off course, no need to create modules or freestyle, no need to reference an encyclopedic tome to find out if chewing bubblegum is considered a free action while kicking ass. Dungeons & Dragons was created in the 1970s by Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and TSR. If you want that whole story, check out our video, The Tragedies and Triumphs in the History of Dungeons & Dragons. The short version is that by 1989, Dungeons & Dragons had been around long enough, it was popular enough that it was time to update some of the rules. TSR released a new second edition of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. It condensed and abbreviated some parts, expanded other parts. It tried to step away from some of the controversy related to the inclusion of demons and devils and character classes that were straight up evil aligned. The goal was to expand the audience by appealing to a younger demographic. Still teens, yes, but more on the 13 end of the spectrum. Simplification was supposed to be part of the plan. Appealing to a younger audience and capitalizing on the popularity of D&D wasn't exclusive to TSR. Milton Bradley, longtime manufacturer of board games like Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, Life, Twister, The Dark Tower, and also, as of 1984, a division of Hasbro wanted to engage that younger fantasy gaming audience that D&D did as well. Meanwhile, a company based in London, England called Games Workshop had been a part of the gaming scene since the 1970s, first as a creator of games, second as a publisher of a gaming magazine called White Dwarf, third as a physical store location to buy games and magazines. Games Workshop began publishing White Dwarf in the late 70s, covering some of the most popular games of the era like Dungeons & Dragons, RuneQuest, and Traveller. Covering them went as far as including unique adventures for those games exclusive to the magazine. White Dwarf also featured how-tos for painting miniatures and creating scene elements for those miniature-based tabletop adventure campaigns. This was not just a service to their readers, but also a way to promote their own products. Because in 1979, Games Workshop helped found Citadel Miniatures, one of the oldest and most popular makers of gaming miniatures. In 1983, they published the first edition of their Warhammer franchise. By 1989, Games Workshop knew everything Milton Bradley wanted to know about creating a fantasy adventure game that could compete in a highly competitive market. Or rather, a man named Stephen Baker, who worked at Games Workshop, knew everything he needed to know. From 1982 to 1984, he worked part-time and was paid in product. In 1984, he became a store manager. In 1986, Milton Bradley's UK office was looking for testers and called the shop. Stephen became a tester on games for Milton Bradley and then took all of that knowledge he had gained and began pitching his own ideas for how all of those game elements of role-playing games could be condensed for the mass market for kids in the 9 to 11-year-old range. That game was Hero Quest, a self-contained group adventure kit in a box for 2 to 5 players. Everything you needed to get started was in that box. Everything you ever needed to continue playing was in that box. Attack dice, defense dice, gridded game board that functioned as the base of every map, game cards and tiles, furniture, doorways, walls, plastic miniature character figurines, the quest book that contained the details of all the ready-made adventures, and a privacy screen for the player tasked with managing the game as the master of dungeons. Because one player serves as the de facto game master, an evil wizard named Zargon in the US and Canada, Morcar everywhere else. Why the difference? I don't know. Why do they eat hot dogs with a fork and knife and we eat them with our hands? Why do they have to put on driving shoes whenever they pilot a car? Why are all of their mirrors monochromatic and ours are full color? Why do they high five with both hands at once? Why do all of their chairs have 5 legs? Nobody knows. This player, the Game Master, controls all of the overarching elements of the game, including introduction and advancement of the story, monster management, and placement of architectural elements as they are encountered by the other players. The other players, 4 ideally, choose from the 4 pre-made archetypal characters, Barbarian, Elf, Wizard, and Dwarf, each one designed to complement the group, each with their own strengths, compensating for the other's weaknesses.
Hero Quest. Deep inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. This is Hero Quest, the fantasy adventure game where winning means mastering the arts of combat
I'll use my broadsword.
and magic.
Fire of Wrath.
Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. Hero Quest. Now with 2 new adventure packs, the legend grows.
Each adventure begins with some exposition to kick things off, to give the players a reason to wander through the treacherous environment, the labyrinth of dangers, the gauntlet of creatures, traps, and evil wizards. And that's it. Get in, throw dice, find treasure, accomplish the mission before dying, switch characters, change game masters, Have fun storming the castle. Or escaping a dungeon, assassination plot, retrieve an artifact, prison break, hired hit, bank heist, missing person. All your favorite narrative framing mechanisms are here, and not for nothing, but every single quest can be a buddy story, a rom-com, or a coming-of-age piece. You decide. Or don't, because it's not role-playing. You don't have to go any further than rolling the dice. Don't use a character voice. Don't get angry and attack your teammates. No drama necessary beyond life and death. But if you like role-playing, then this isn't not necessarily the place to get some. You can introduce those elements if you want to. You can carry over weapons or treasure acquired in quests to future quests if you want to. You can give your characters a backstory, a motivation, a funny hat. The good times end when the players either accomplish the mission, that's a win for the players, or all the players are dead. That's a win for Zargon. Or Morcar, depending on how you eat your hot dogs. Hero Quest isn't just a game, it's a game system. That means that all the elements are there to play it as is right out of the box, or expand it, enhance it, and customize it. Milton Bradley knew that players would likely tire of the 14 quests included with the initial release. 2 pages in the quest book are dedicated to giving players the tools they need to create their own quests. 1 page, a blank grid map of the game board. Another page, all of the icons representing the various monsters, traps, treasures, and accoutrements that might be needed for a quest. The instructions suggest photocopying these pages, marking the map accordingly, writing an intro paragraph, and then get to fighting. That page also teased that Milton Bradley would be releasing official expansion modules and additional quests in the near future, which they did. Kicking it off with Keller's Keep in 1989, expansions brought not only new quests, but also new character types, treasure, environmental elements, traps, cards, and new characters and new monsters, which meant new character and monster figures as well. The adventures continued in Return of the Witch Lord, Against the Ogre Horde, and a full adventure design kit in 1990, Wizards of Morcar and the Dark Company in 1991, Frozen Horror and the Mage of the Mirror in 1992, and like Dungeons & Dragons before it, HeroQuest couldn't help but bring out a more advanced version of the game. Advanced HeroQuest came with new miniatures, more complex rules for combat including ranged attacks, modular game board pieces, critical hits and fumbles, a random dungeon generation system, and, should you find yourself in the moment, the rules for how to play the game alone. Advanced HeroQuest also introduced compatibility with the Warhammer World of Miniature tabletop wargaming system, because in the early 90s, Games Workshop was publishing games all over the place that centered around miniature gaming, and nearly all of them took place, or could take place, in the Games Workshop shared universe of Warhammer, their signature simulated fantasy army combat game system. HeroQuest, Advanced HeroQuest, Blood Bowl, Crunch, Mighty Warriors, Man o' War, Battle Masters, Space Crusade. Their magazine, White Dwarf, supplemented all of those games and advertised their new products coming soon to be used with those games. As a brand, HeroQuest was supported by 3 novels and in 1991, a PC game called HeroQuest. A Nintendo port was in the works but never made it to the shelves. A second PC game, HeroQuest 2 Legacy of Sorasil, came home in 1994. Milton Bradley and Games Workshop accomplished what they set out to accomplish. They created a gaming system with some life in it that, in 1992, was recognized with an Origins Award by the Academy of Venture Gaming Arts and Design for Best Graphic Presentation of a Board Game of 1991. HeroQuest quickly morphed into both HeroQuest and Advanced HeroQuest. In 1995, it was joined by Warhammer Quest, a less subtle version of the game that less subtly incorporated the gameplay into the world of Warhammer. HeroQuest and Advanced HeroQuest ceased publication in 1997. Warhammer Quest expired in 1998. Players would have to find other outlets for their fantasy adventures, either within the world of Warhammer, back in the dungeons with dragons, or in packs of Magic the Gathering. But that wasn't the end of the story for HeroQuest, because the best thing about HeroQuest is the fans. Today, HeroQuest is still buoyed by an active, engaged, and enthusiastic fan base, not quite the scale of Dungeons & Dragons. If D&D is here, HeroQuest is here. And then if you blow this up, then you can see that the HeroQuest fan base is right here. Those fans have kept the game alive and continue to create their own game boards, quests, and characters. One fan wrote a free-to-download game simulator that allows you to download every official quest ever created and run games by yourself if you want to play alone. But the best thing about HeroQuest isn't the game at all. It's a video called Why HeroQuest is So Great by Bardic Broadcasts.
The best thing about HeroQuest is the barbarian. Look at the muscularity. The best thing about HeroQuest is the broadsword.
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 Fire of Wrath.
This is an abomination. This is a gargoyle. Oh no, Mormons!
You can purchase entire sets of repro 3D printed playing pieces from the original HeroQuest or newly designed pieces, or you can save up your money and hit the secondary market to purchase a new or used sample of the original game itself. HeroQuest incorporated the core elements and design of other successful games and efficiently repackaged them for a new audience. It was an entry point for a generation of players that fell in love with tabletop gaming before online video game technology, and Magic the Gathering completely altered the landscape of gaming altogether. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. If you're in the position to help the channel grow, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/ToyGalaxy or become a channel member at youtube.com/ToyGalaxyTV/join. Both Patreon and YouTube channel membership have the same exclusive content, so choose your own adventure. Please share this video and let us know in the comments down below if you've ever played HeroQuest or if you were all D&D. I used to play this game called Notebook Adventure Fights. Basically just me, a spiral-bound notebook, and a handful of miniatures. You gotta spend at least 120 hours creating intricate backgrounds for the characters, origins, stats, interpersonal relationships, and then you just roll dice until there's like a lone survivor. Copyright 1989, Dan Larson Enterprises. Don't steal my ideas.
I won't. Cut.
All it takes is some paper, some dice, some imagination, and a handful of people who promise not to get too invested in the ad-libbed reality they create together through a shared interactive storytelling experience fraught with hidden traps, psychological manipulation, immersive role-playing, and, in some cases, a bowl full of Sour Patch Kids. It's all fun and games even if someone loses an eye or the entire party gets killed. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy-inspired role-playing game set within an era that, for the sake of brevity, we will...
Alright, so welcome new viewers. I'm just doing a little bit of an art stream here, and I'll just put my mic a little closer. Alright, so welcome. Glad to see you here still. Hopefully there's gonna be more viewers, but anyway, that's it. Welcome to the stream.
Call medieval times. Swords and sorcery, kings and castles, elves and dwarves, these are some of the general foundational elements that begin to paint the picture of the world that your character will live and most likely die in. Every experience is different, every player is different, every character is different, but they are all bound together by a uniform set of rules that governs everything from the amount of damage inflicted when a sword impacts armor, to the distance a heavily laden horse can travel in a single day, to the weather systems that can occur in a geographic area. The advancement of the story, the fate of all the characters in the world, and the world itself is determined moment by moment, turn by turn through the actions of the players in the game and the Dungeon Master, an individual thanklessly burdened with the task of bringing the supernatural world to life and serving as the tireless advocate of verisimilitude, combined with an infusion of pure chance by rolling dice. It is a communal, social gaming experience unlike any other. There is no score, no winner, and no way to predict the outcome. You play the game to play the game. There is only the experience, which you can earn points for. In 1956, Gary Gygax dropped out of high school during his junior year just after the death of his father. He joined the United States Marine Corps, but his enlistment didn't last long as he was diagnosed with walking pneumonia, given a medical discharge, and returned home to live with his mother in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where he got a job as a shipping clerk for an insurance company. In 1958, game publisher Avalon Hill released a game called Gettysburg, which was developed around the American Civil War battle of the same name. It involved troop maneuvers on a map divided into squares at first, then later hexagonal grid. It is today considered the first modern historic war game, and 2 years out from his military discharge and departure from high school, Gary Gygax became obsessed with it and war games in general. In fact, he had begun to write about war games for fan groups and clubs focused on the hobby. He was so involved in the community, in the fandom, that in 1967 he helped create the International Federation of Wargaming, or IFW, which grew quickly and assimilated several smaller gaming organizations throughout the area. The IFW was soon followed by the Castle and Crusade Society, or C&CS, in 1970 as a subgroup of the IFW focused on medieval miniature wargaming. The CNCS had a publication called the Domesday Book, which featured the evolving and expanding rule sets that would form the foundation of a very specific set of combat rules for medieval-era games called Chainmail, co-written by Gygax and fellow game designer Jeff Perrin. In 1970, the Lake Geneva Tactical Studies Association, or LGTSA, another prominent wargaming group, was created and featured members including Gary Gygax, Jeff Perrin, and Gary's childhood friend Don Kay. That same year, a game publisher called Gidon Games reached out to the LGTSA and the IFW, which put them in touch with Gary Gygax and the variety of works he had already produced. Gidon Games tasked Gary with producing a series of guides called Wargaming with Miniatures. This collection of guides would ultimately include Gygax and Perrin's Chainmail and was released in 1971. It was also the first Gary Gygax product commercially available for sale and the first ever commercially available set of rules for wargaming that took place in a fantasy world thanks to a fantasy supplement that clearly drew influences from the works of J.R.R. Tolkien and other fantasy writers. Chainmail would prove to be by far the most successful gaming guide in Gidon's Wargaming with Miniatures series. Tactical Studies Rules, or TSR, the company founded by Gary Gygax, Dave Kay, and Brian Bloom, published Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D, in 1974. The specific game mechanics and rule sets for D&D was an evolved effort over time from several writers and game designers over several years, each borrowing and modifying concepts to suit the needs of their games at the time. Ultimately, Dungeons & Dragons, as published by TSR, was credited to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. Dungeons & Dragons popularized the concepts of fantasy-based role-playing games. Yes, both Dungeons and Dragons played a prominent role, but along with that came the character sheet detailing a character's abilities, their character class, level, race, armor class, and alignment. It introduced monsters and magic items, hidden traps, and also assumed that you had a copy of the previously released game Chainmail to handle the rules for actual systems of measurement and combat encounters. It wasn't perfect. 1,000 copies of the original game were produced, hand-assembled, and put up for sale. Within a year, they had sold through the entire first run. A year later, in 1975, they would triple their sales. Things were moving along for Dungeons & Dragons, but it was clear that as the game's popularity increased, there was a need to revisit the rules, clarify, expand, and include some of the supplemental items that had been included in successive printings during the multiple releases in the first 3 years. In 1977, a new updated version called the Dungeons & Dragons Basic Set was released. It was written by J. Eric Holmes based on the works of Gygax and Arneson. The commercial goal was to broaden the field of potential gamers, to make it easier to start playing, to make it more accessible to players as young as 12 and everyone who didn't already have experience with the structure and format of wargames. The basic set was like a starter kit that would allow a group of players to advance their character through the first 3 levels of development, at which time they could move on to a new version of the game with a more elaborate system of rules. Dungeons & Dragons for advanced players, if you will. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or AD&D, was released in 1977, concurrent with the release of the basic set, and marked a point at which the franchise was not only expanding, but also splitting itself in two. And both properties would fluctuate for the next 4 decades, adding books, revising editions, consolidating, expanding, and contracting with the tastes and preferences of the players, whatever it took to stay relevant in the public consciousness and wallets. By 1980, TSR was selling 12,000 units per month, and by 1984, 10 years after the first set was hand-assembled, TSR sold 750,000 copies of Dungeons & Dragons. Millions of people were playing. Dungeons & Dragons was a cultural phenomenon.
Your dungeon master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position. You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created. Your skin grows cold from your first glimpse of the enormous beast. It's a product of your imagination. Survival depends on a quick, decisive move. Your choices are limited. Stand and fight, or run. Use your lightning bolt. Victory is yours.
Win the treasure.
TSR Hobbies, Dungeons & Dragons games. Products of your imagination.
Where most people saw a game that inspired creativity and expanded the imagination, others saw the rising specter of the occult, Satanism, and suicide. They saw a gateway into evil, preparing an entire generation of youths to utilize evil powers hidden in the darkness. In August of 1979, Michigan State University student James Dallas Egbert III went missing. A private investigator named William Deere was hired to find him. Deere speculated that James had entered the maintenance tunnels below the university during a live-action session of role-playing, based on what he had learned about James's interests. The story gained significant media attention. It was later discovered that James had written a suicide note and then entered the tunnels, not with the intention to play D&D of any sort, but to take his own life. When he failed to kill himself, he ran away. After failing to take his own life a second time, James reached out to Deere and revealed the details of his disappearance and attempts at taking his own life. Deere promised James that he would keep his secret and released him into the custody of his uncle. A year later, James shot himself. In 1982, a sensationalized fictionalization of the James Dallas Egbert disappearance and suicide called Monsters and Mazes was adapted for television from the book of the same name. It starred Tom Hanks and helped to cement the idea in the public consciousness that D&D was commonly acted out in dangerous locations and that players had a hard time distinguishing the fantasy from the reality, and suicide was a potential result of the dark magic the game was channeling. 1982 was also the year that Patricia Pulling's own son shot himself. Patricia blamed her son's high school principal for exposing her son to D&D through games that were being held at the school. She sued the principal and TSR for making the game in the first place. When her lawsuits were dismissed, she started an organization called Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, or BAD, to try to bring attention to what she believed was a dangerous influence the game was having on kids who played it. She even appeared on an episode of 60 Minutes opposite Gary Gygax to advocate for the regulation of the game and to speak in her opinion about the danger of the game. Gary Gygax was there to refute her unfounded accusations.
This is make-believe, and nobody's murdered, and there's no violence there. I mean, to use an analogy with another game, who is bankrupted by losing a game of Monopoly? Nobody is, because the money is make-believe, the property is make-believe, and the bankruptcy is make-believe.
In 1984, William Deere, the private investigator who swore to keep James Dallas Egbert's secret before he killed himself, wrote a book called Dungeon Master, specifically to refute all the claims made by the book and TV movie Monsters and Mazes and all of the speculative media coverage. He put the blame squarely on James's parents as he described James as a kid who was actually struggling with drug abuse, depression, and his sexuality. D&D and suicide, the occult concepts that had been promoted by people like Patricia Pulling, had unfortunately been associated with D&D and everyone who played it. The media played up any story where a suicide or a murder was committed and there was a connection to D&D. But statistics suggest that with the amount of people that were playing Dungeons & Dragons, with the growing popularity of it, suicide rates would inevitably overlap. The American Association of Suicidology, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Health and Welfare of Canada have all concluded that there is no link between playing D&D and any increase in suicide, and no correlation between playing the game being detrimental to mental health.
Open the world of advanced Dungeons and Dragons action figures. Strongheart, Bronze Dragon, Morduk, Nightmare. Discover a world of mystery and magic.
Stand back, Strongheart. You shall never have this treasure.
Evil is no match for good, until we meet again.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons action figures from LJN. Pure magic.
The passage of time, more than anything, has allowed D&D to rise above the negative associations of the game, because that era of kids has grown into mostly fine, upstanding adults, productive members of society, many of whom can't even spell occult without spell check activated. And anyway, through the 80s and into the 90s, the mainstream was already embracing the D&D phenomenon with all kinds of commercial products. Once again, capitalism saves the day. Halloween costumes, toys, Viewmaster reels, coloring books, pencil sharpeners, wallets, read-along storybooks, comic books, novels, magazines, computer games, and not for nothing, but 3 seasons of a Saturday morning cartoon. D&D's popularity would crest and trough over the years, those peaks and valleys usually associated with new edition releases and how those new releases were or were not embraced by fans of the game. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition was released in 1989, 3rd edition was released in 2000, which marked a few milestones. 1, it was the same year a D&D feature film was released. I still haven't seen it, but I'm sure producer Greg has. 2, it reunited the Dungeons & Dragons and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons games into a product that henceforth would just be called Dungeons & Dragons. 3, it was the first update published after TSR was purchased by Wizards of the Coast. And 4, it was the first update published after Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast. Hasbro, till all are one. 4th edition was released in 2008. 5th edition, the edition that brought me back into the game, was released in 2014, coinciding with the 40th anniversary. Dungeons & Dragons is the best-known, best-selling, most influential RPG of all time with over $1 billion in sales. It has become a part of mainstream pop culture through references and actual plot significances in major motion pictures and on Netflix original programming and shows like Stranger Things. There are hundreds of gameplay podcasts, drunken and sober. There are millions of gamers playing and watching on services like Twitch. It has seen unprecedented sales growth since the release of the 5th edition in 2014, with 2017 marking its best year ever. And somewhere, right now, there are writers and producers working on a Dungeons & Dragons movie with a projected release date of July 23rd, 2021. Dungeons & Dragons is now a multi-generational experience and brand. The kids who started playing back in the 70s and 80s are now adults who have passed it on to their kids and, in some situations, actually play with their kids. The associations with the occult and suicide have long since faded into the background since video games took over the torch of corrupting the youth of the world. Am I sitting naturally? Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to
Be right back.
Thank you to eBay for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below to go right to all the Power Rangers collectibles you've been looking for. Translating and importing a successful Japanese media property was nothing new to the US in 1993. Voltron, Robotech, Battle of the Planets, Star Blazers, heck, even Godzilla all started in Japan. But a live-action superhero TV series about a team of teenagers with attitude recruited to fight against the forces of evil with super weapons, highly choreographed martial arts, and giant transforming robots was, and their fight to save their world would change ours forever, creating a pop culture franchise that has lasted over 25 years. I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Power Rangers. The Power Rangers franchise began in 1993 with the series titled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It introduced the concept of 5 teenagers recruited to join a team of primary color costumed superheroes tasked with protecting the world from evil. The teens are supplied with everything they need in their fight against Space Witch Rita Repulsa by Zordon, a giant benevolent space head floating in a tube of light. Zordon and his partner Alpha 5 provide them with these suits that enhance their physical abilities, a base, super weapons like guns, swords, and axes, and giant transforming robots called Zords that can combine to form an ultimate weapon called a Megazord. Over 3 seasons from 1993 through 1995, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers established the template for the tone, visuals, and overall plot progression. With each successive season, the composition of the team cycles through new cast members, new themes, new Zords, and new threats to Earth, a refresh pattern that continues today. Power Rangers was created by Haim Saban and Shuki Levy through their television and music production company, Saban Productions. Saban Productions, founded in 1980, would grow and evolve into Saban Entertainment in 1988. During that time, Saban happened to be in Japan, where he happened to see a show called Bioman. Chodenshi Bioman, or in English, Super Electron Bioman, was a show about a team of primary color costume superheroes protecting the world from evil with special suits that enhance their physical abilities, super weapons like guns and swords, and giant transforming vehicles that can combine to form an ultimate weapon called Bio-Robo. It aired in Japan from February of 1984 to January of 1985. At the time, it was the 8th installment of the Super Sentai series, which had begun in 1975 with Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger, or in English, Secret Squadron Go Ranger. Saban could see the potential for adapting Bioman into English and bringing it to the United States. In 1985, he cut together a pilot for a Bioman episode and shopped it around the networks, who each took turns saying no. Saban wasn't the first to recognize the potential and try to import Super Sentai to the US. A few years earlier, Stan Lee and Marvel attempted the same thing with the 5th Super Sentai team, Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan. What a different world we would be living in if only. Imagine Power Rangers kicking off 10 years earlier with my favorite Sentai team produced by Marvel. Today, maybe even part of the MCU. After having completed a successful 3-year character exchange partnership with Toei that saw Shogun Warriors comics from Marvel in the US and a Japanese Spider-Man television show in Japan, Stan was enamored with the action and presentation of the Japanese superhero shows and thought it could work in Hollywood. The networks disagreed. For more on that, check out our video all about Japanese Spider-Man and his influence on the Super Sentai and Power Rangers genre. There are several benefits to importing pre-existing content. Number 1, it already exists. You save a lot of time and money when you don't have to conceive, develop, and produce the whole thing from scratch. An episode of Power Rangers is nearly 30% complete before anyone at Saban has done anything. When Toei is done with costumes and props for a given season of Super Sentai, send all that stuff with the completed episode footage over to Saban to be redubbed with the English-speaking actors, who will shoot any additional fill-in segments to develop a plot unique to the US audience. Most of the fight scenes and just about anything in costume is already done, including visual effects. Names and locations can be changed, shots can be reused if necessary or eliminated, chronology can be shifted, characters from one season can be moved to another. New characters can be created that were never there to begin with. Heck, 153 episodes of Kyoryu Sentai Zyu Ranger, Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger, and Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger became 145 episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. and 10 episodes of Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. Whatever it was originally in terms of narrative only matters to the extent that it needs to be clearly communicated to the new audience and the proprietary branded characters. Ultimately, the only thing that really matters is eyeballs on screens and toys on the shelves, because that is where the money is made. Power Rangers is the name of the brand. The first 3 seasons are called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but everything after that, every new season, every refresh gets its own title. Power Rangers Turbo, Power Rangers in Space, Power Rangers Time Force, Power Rangers SPD, Power Rangers Megaforce. Each season adapts a season that has already run in Japan, anywhere from 1 year earlier to as much as 7 years ago. Toei discovered very early in the process that Super Sentai programs were a great vehicle, pun intended, for selling all kinds of toys and action figures, robots and comics and clothes and video games and anything else you can slap a logo on. It was that kind of merchandising power that Saban was hoping to take advantage of, and did. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers found its home on Fox Kids, a block of children's television programming Monday through Friday from 2 to 5 p.m. That's the magic hour for weekday kids programming, and Fox Kids was already a kids' TV juggernaut. Batman the Animated Series was the anchor beginning in September of 1992, but other heavy hitters cycled through. Tiny Toon Adventures, X-Men the Animated Series, Eek the Cat, Super Dave, Daredevil for Hire, and reruns of Alvin and the Chipmunks, Muppet Babies, and Beetlejuice. It was the convergence of some of the biggest pop culture brands of the decade. The interest in superhero shows was already cultivated with Batman and X-Men. Saban's Power Rangers found exactly the right outlet to reach exactly the right audience. In 1994, Batman, the X-Men, and Power Rangers would all be joined by Spider-Man, the Tick, and Animaniacs, a lineup that no other network could compete with, and every one of them driving kids directly to the toy aisle to continue the adventures at home. Not only did these Super Sentai shows already exist for Saban to repurpose, but supporting merchandise did as well. Action figures, transformable Zords, roleplay items. Saban partnered with Bandai America to make sure that anything and everything a child of the 90s could want related to Power Rangers would be available, or at least they would try. Power Rangers was so popular at launch that there were difficulties maintaining stock levels. It was one of the hot holiday toys of 1993 and 1994.
The Power Rangers have grown into a billion-dollar business with a vast array of licensed products from over 250 licensees worldwide.
The cycle of product refresh season after season was a godsend for toy retailers at the time and long into the future for online marketplaces like eBay.
Transforming action, Power Rangers. This is Zordon. It's transforming time. Evil space aliens are approaching your location. Combine your weapons. It's your only hope. Karate action, Power Rangers. Use your hand-to-hand fighting abilities. Protect the Earth from evil space aliens. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. Grab the power.
Power Rangers have been featured in comics since 1994 at companies like Hamilton, Marvel, Image, and Disney, most recently in multiple series by Boom Studios, which introduced an alternate dystopian potential future where Lord Drakon has defeated not only Rita Repulsa, but all of the Rangers, and now he's come to Earth to do the same. Power Rangers video games were produced for nearly every console and handheld system since the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. Today you can play Power Rangers Battle for the Grid on your favorite system, whether it's Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo Switch, which also features Lord Drakon. Power Rangers was a multimedia and pop culture phenomenon right out of the gate, and that strength grew over successive seasons. Saban Entertainment continued to develop the Power Rangers brand from 1993 to 2001, when the all-seeing eye of the Walt Disney Company took notice. Seeking a boys' complement to their explosive Disney Princesses brand, which did $300 million in its first year of existence, Disney bought out Fox Family Worldwide, which included Saban Entertainment and the Power Rangers franchise. The Power Rangers were going to be the Disney Ninja Princes, if you will. But Disney's relationship with Power Rangers wasn't as natural a fit as their own characters developed internally over the course of nearly 70 years. Several affiliates, regardless of Disney's ownership of the networks, would not air Power Rangers shows due to conflicts with FCC regulations, specifically a lack of any educational or informational content as required by the Children's Television Act of 1990.
But critics point to the violence, and they say this is a bad message for children, no matter how the producers try to package it.
If you're in the right, it's okay to use weapons, it's okay to use force, it's okay to hurt, to maim, to kill. And that's a pretty sad message to be giving children.
By 2009, Disney was ready to move on and announced that instead of developing the creation of a new season based on the 2009 Super Sentai show, Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, they would just rebroadcast the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in 2010 and wash their hands of the whole thing. Besides, they had just found their new boys line sweethearts with the acquisition of Marvel Entertainment, thanks in no small part to the billions of dollars in accumulated Disney Princesses revenue. After Disney bought the Power Rangers, Saban Entertainment reinvented itself as BVS Entertainment in 2002. In 2010, when Disney was ready to unload the franchise, Saban was there with $43 million to reacquire everything Disney had purchased during the Fox family buyout. Saban got right back to business with the production of a new series called Power Rangers Samurai based on the 2009 Super Sentai series Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. The first episode aired in February of 2011, and Saban announced the production of a new Power Rangers movie, which was ultimately never actually released.
Gram of gold can be flattened into a 1 meter square sheet. How about that? Weight is where we have another big problem, because if you were to produce a full gold In the medieval period, armor wasn't only a piece of defensive kit, it was also a statement of wealth and power. Kings and noblemen had their armor richly decorated. It was a merging of form and function, but it was also something for all to see, allies and foe, during tournament, joust of peace, and in war. Now, whenever we think of medieval armor and weapons, iron and various types of steel are metals we think of, but they weren't the only ones used. Sure, blades by this time were usually steel. But when it comes to maces, bronze head maces and brass head maces also existed. You probably see the pattern here. If it's a big lump of metal used to strike, it doesn't really matter what metal that is. But with armor, that's different. Gold is a very rare element, 0.004 parts per million in the Earth's crust, and it's that rarity, together with its density and other factors, that give it its value. And it's pretty. Compare that with iron, which is the base to make steel. Iron by mass is the most common element on Earth, right in front of oxygen. Iron is about 5% of the Earth's crust, making it the fourth most abundant element in it. Due to mass segregation, the core of the Earth is believed to be primarily composed of iron. The molten outer core is about 8,000 kilometers in diameter, and the solid inner core is about 2,500 kilometers in diameter. Iron is plentiful because of its nuclear stability in stellar nuclear fusion reactions. Gold instead is famous for its unreactivity, and because of that it's a great way to store your wealth. The likelihood that it will combine with other elements, rust or dissolve, is basically zero. It doesn't tarnish or alter with time. That is why, if you were given a choice between a cube of gold and a cube of iron, well, duh. Anything made of gold will persist for thousands of years. This is brass, by the way. Yeah, I wish. Look at this gold, for example. This is from the treasure of Varna. I will make a dedicated video because the story of this civilization is a fascinating mystery. However, for the purposes of this video, let me just tell you that this that you see is not 1,000 years old, not 2,000 or 3,000, it's over 6,000 years old, making it the oldest gold ever found. Look at the conditions. Impressive stuff. Gold is also a noble metal, meaning that it stands apart, barely reacting with the other elements in the periodic table. Well, if you were super rich, like a king or an emperor, and gold is such a great noble metal, wouldn't gold plates make for a great armor that would persist through time and need no maintenance? Well, surely steel and iron armor do rust, and that is a problem. In fact, that's why historically many solutions were invented, and servants such as pages and squires were constantly maintaining it, covering it with a thin layer of oil, ore and beeswax. Or, as they did in Japan, covering the bare metal with several layers of lacquer, or, for a better term for it, urushi, although Japanese historically accurate urushi is toxic, so don't do that. A full-plate golden armor would not have any problems with rust or the like. However, there are two main qualities that define the metal armorers used for armor: hardness and weight. Now, availability of materials also plays a pivotal role in the choice of what metals to use in order to produce weapons and armor, and that could explain the shift that happened in the classical period, so in the Roman era, from bronze to iron, but that's a discussion for another video. In fact, this video, link in the description. Hardness is a measure of the resistance to localized plastic deformation induced by either mechanical indentation or abrasion. In other words, it's a measure of how resistant solid matter is to various kinds of permanent shape change when a force is applied. The hardness and the corresponding compressive strength of the surface material used to make armor needs to be above a critical value in order for it to be effective, particularly against weapons of iron and steel. When compared, gold and iron, and even more so steel, are radically different in performance. Keeping in mind that there isn't one single kind of steel, and the variables in all the different kinds of alloys will change the results of any comparison between steel and gold, but we can safely say that any kind of steel will outperform significantly gold in any of these comparison tests. That shouldn't surprise us. Have a look at the Friedrich Mohs hardness scale. When the German geologist devised the scale of hardness that we use today, he used a simple principle to determine the grade for each material, which material can scratch it and which material it can scratch. For example, platinum, which has a hardness of 4 to 4.5, can be scratched by all materials that have a higher Mohs grade. However, it can in turn scratch any material that is graded lower. For example, gold, which has a hardness of 2.5 to 3. And here is where iron is in the scale and where several kinds of steels are. Gold is malleable and soft. Malleable meaning that it can be hammered or pressed into shape without breaking or cracking. How malleable is gold, you say? Just 1 gram of gold can be flattened into a 1 meter square sheet. How about that? Weight is where we have another big problem, because if you were to produce a full gold plate harness, well, that would weigh quite a lot. Although in this case, when we are talking about weight, what we are really talking about is density. When looking at gold, silver, copper and iron, gold, the densest of the four, has a density of 19.32 grams per cubic meter, silver 10.49, copper 8.96 and iron 7.874. Gold has many more protons and neutrons in the nucleus of each atom than iron does. each gold atom weighs almost 4 times as much as each iron atom. In other words, there are nearly as many gold atoms as there are iron atoms per volume, but each gold atom weighs a lot more, so gold ends up denser. Thus, good luck wearing all of that, unless you have the 7th sense. I guess. But if the density of gold is higher than that of iron, then why is gold softer, even though it weighs more? Okay, the hardness of a material or metal is directly related to its atomic structure. Every metal has its specific crystalline structure with its own densely packed crystalline planes. Macroscopic hardness is generally characterized by strong intermolecular bonds, although I'm simplifying quite a bit here, as the behavior of solid materials under force is, well, complex. And that's why there are different measurements of hardness: scratch hardness, indentation hardness, and rebound hardness. Hardness is dependent on ductility, elastic stiffness, plasticity, strain, strength, toughness, viscoelasticity, and viscosity. Most metals and alloys crystallize in 3 very common structures: body-centered cubic, hexagonal close-packed, or cubic close-packed. Atoms in metallic crystals have a tendency to pack in dense arrangements that fill space efficiently. Gold's crystal structure is closed-packed, face-centered cubic. Imagine an atom of gold at each corner of a cube and in the middle of each face. Using up 74% of the space, this is one of the most efficient ways for spheres to pack together. Gold shares its face-centered cubic crystal structure with copper, nickel, platinum, and lead. Iron instead at room temperature has a body-centered cubic structure. In pure iron, the crystal structure has relatively little resistance to the iron atoms slipping past one another, and so pure iron is quite ductile or soft and easily formed. In steel, small amounts of carbon, other elements, and inclusions within the iron act as hardening agents that prevent the movement of dislocations. In contrast, gold atoms pass each other relatively easily, making the metal soft and malleable. So technically, you could make an armor of gold plate, but it would be extremely heavy and it would be too soft and easy to penetrate, not to mention extremely expensive. Now here's an interesting fun fact for you. A medieval full gold plate armor would have had an enormous weakness that medieval alchemists of the early 1300s and early 14th century would have been very familiar with. A specific solution called aqua regia, with an Italian pronunciation, in medieval Latin probably pronounced aqua regia. Still, what was it and why would it be a weakness for a gold plate armor? Aqua regia, meaning royal water, is a mixture of 2 acids, namely nitric acid and hydrochloric acid, at a specific ratio of 1:3. Now, the fumes produced by nitric acids are extremely dangerous, and if you happen to inhale them, they would produce nitric acids in your lungs, so don't do it at home, I suppose. But this solution would be this guy's worst nightmare. You see, most metals will dissolve in nitric acid, and many will dissolve in hydrochloric. Gold is untouched by both. However, the combination of the two, hence aqua regia, has the power to dissolve even gold. So in other words, if you have to fight a king or a duke in full plate gold armor, all you need is a little potion filled with aqua regia. You go like this, bye-bye armor. Now, even though all of the things we said sort of discouraged the idea of a full plate gold armor, still gilded armor existed, and all of these things didn't stop very successful and wealthy men to adorn and decorate their armor with a thin layer of gold on top of the steel. And when it comes to the medieval period, the technique used is usually called fire gilding. The reason why it's called fire gilding: powdered gold is mixed with mercury, creating a sort of amalgam, a paste, if you will, that is spread over the surface that they wish to decorate, and then heat is applied. What heat does is that it makes mercury vaporize off, leaving only the gold chemically bound to the surface. Now this is interesting because the idea of adding heat is a very medieval thing, because the Romans didn't do it this way. They still did use mercury, or quicksilver as often called, but since the technique is quite complicated, perhaps it will need a dedicated video. And again, the fumes produced with this technique would be very toxic, so good luck with that, I suppose, for ancient armorers. But it is also fair to say that gilding was a very effective technique, in fact so effective that it would be even more durable than modern gold plating. Gold plating is instead an electromagnetic technique that allows the gold to be layered and deposited on the surface of the piece that you wish to decorate. Gold plating is a relatively modern technique. Instead, gilding is incredibly ancient, so much so that even ancient Egyptians, even before the Europeans and Phoenicians, used it thousands of years ago. What's incredibly interesting about gilding is that not only it was used to create sort of accents, for example, to gild the rims of the armor in order to give it a little bit of a contrast of both the silvery look of steel and the beautiful bright yellow gold look. But some kings and extremely wealthy people went all the way to having the entirety of the armor gilded. One of these would be King Henry VIII and his tournament armor. So in a way, we could say that even though full plate gold armor didn't historically exist for the reasons that we have brought forth with this video, fully gilded armor did exist. So period people did like the idea of having their entire suit of armor have the look of gold, appear as if it were made entirely in gold. However, in closure, it is important to say that full gold plate breastplates have been discovered. Although when we say breastplates, since we're talking about civilizations of like 5000 and 6000 BC, we're talking about pieces of jewelry, not breastplates in a later sense as if it's a piece or a component of a full plate suit of armor. We're talking about something that would cover a little bit of your torso, and even though most archaeologists would say it would be for ceremonial purposes, my opinion to that is that rather than really being ceremonial, it probably was a way to say, look how rich I am so successful, get me the girls. But with all that being said, thank you so much, noble ones, for watching my video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please remember thumbs up. And if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. If you had the means, would you get your entire suit of armor gilded? Would you go nuts and get an entire full gold plate suit of armor, regardless of the problems you might have? Or would you use that money to build another castle? Or a pair of castles? Well, let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye. Today's video is a little bit of a drama video, but it's for a good cause, so please bear with me. Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and I believe that the topic of this video is rather long due. In the last few years, we have seen a relative big change when it comes to content production on this platform. Originally, YouTube was, I want to say, an entertainment platform, but as the years went on, more and more educational channels started to be born. Whether it be channels teaching you history, hand skills, science, you name it. With YouTube, the situation changed. A lot of people with a great passion for historical matters, and even science in that matter, began to be able to share with the masses their opinions and the things that they were studying. So the rise of the educational YouTubers created what could be perceived by some people in academia as a threat. But is it? As content creators, and not really me because I'm relatively small, but there are YouTubers out there that can reach millions and millions of people, and the reach of some educational channels on YouTube is bigger than that of some universities. I'd like to begin by pointing out that in my experience in academia, you've got three different kinds of academics when it comes to their reaction and position towards us educational channels on YouTube. You've got academics that despise us, that think that we shouldn't exist, that we shouldn't be given a platform, that we are just a bunch of idiots, that we know nothing, that our online reach is actually dangerous and that we just shouldn't exist, and they attack us. And today, I'm gonna show you one. I've got loads of screenshots of an online conversation that I've had with a person that I think if you are into Roman reenactment, you know exactly who this person is. But you will exactly see how toxic some people in academia can be towards us. Then you have people like the university professor who contacted me a few days ago, an extremely extremely humble person who was so nice, and I'm not going to be able to show you the entirety of the contents of the emails we've been exchanging because they contain personal information, but I will give you a sneak peek just to show you how refreshingly humble some professors and academics and researchers can be. Third, you have got people like Tobias Capwell, academics who understand the value of YouTube and fully embrace it. So even though for some people YouTube as a platform automatically means, oh, whatever you have learned, it means nothing. Well, you can easily prove that wrong by showing a video where you've got someone such as Tobias Capwell. He's not a YouTuber, but he's a fully fledged professional academic who understands the importance of YouTube and is more than happy to collaborate with YouTubers like me, Scholar Gladiatoria, and I hope to soon be able to have him as a guest in one of my videos. It would be an honor. In a moment, I will be reading to you extremely toxic comments, but that's just to show you that I'm not building a strawman here, so be prepared. But before doing that, I'd like to say that one thing the YouTubers have, and I'd like to put myself in this even though there are people that are much more talented than me, is we have a way to reach the younger generation. We know how to make content entertaining, we can make it accessible, we can make it fun. And to those people who think, oh, he's just a YouTuber, why are you even listening to that idiot? Well, they don't understand that this that I've just said is an actual set of skills. And I believe that uniting the knowledge of a professional researcher and academic together with the entertainment skills and editing skills of a YouTuber is a great thing to do. We don't need to be enemies. We can be allies. We educational YouTubers need to be humble enough to recognize that yes, even though I am deeply invested into history and I love studying history, I don't have the amount of knowledge that a professional researcher has on these topics. And academics and researchers need to be humble enough to recognize that even though we might not know as much as they do, we still do have a recognizable, applicable set of skills when it comes to production quality, consistency, entertainment value, and the overall reach that we have towards people that it did come from passion, dedication, and sacrifice. Let's have a look at these comments. Now, the other day I was watching a video by Invicta channel, which is a channel that I very much respect. Julian, the creator, I've had a chance to speak to him on Skype. I know how many weeks of research he puts into the creation and production of his videos, and therefore I respect him. I respect his channel and I respect him as a content creator. So under one of his videos, I wrote the following comment. Fantastic work, extremely well researched. Thanks for posting. To this, a professional academic and author replied, I'm going to cancel out his name because he doesn't have a YouTube channel and it wouldn't be classy. It wouldn't be right to, I don't want my audience to go there and attack him, so I'm going to cancel out his name. But here's what he said. Extremely well researched. Apparently, open quotes, Metatron close quotes, is just as clueless as the author of this video, in as much as both of them are blissfully unaware that the main source of so-called contemporary evidence cited is not even a depiction of Roman soldiers, but of Ptolemaic Greek soldiers. Neither of these guys have any real credentials to consider themselves real historians, but are simply average history buff wannabes who are able to make YouTube videos. A classic example of the blind leading the blind. Now, I have to say, the guy pissed me off. He pissed me off because he's attacking me and he's judging me. He's saying I'm blind, and yet without watching my content, he says that I proclaim to be a real historian, even though countless times on this channel I've said that I have a massive passion for history, but I'm not a professional historian, I'm a linguist. So being pissed off, I responded and I said, you're very judgy, aren't you? If you know better, make a channel, I'll watch. And even though I said it in a little bit of an angry way, I meant it when I said that I'll watch, because even though I might not like the way he speaks, I do recognize the fact that this guy knows what he's talking about. Then Seferino joins the fight and he says, shut the hell up and make your own channel. I can't condone the word usage, but... So this person replies first to Seferino and says, I write books on these subjects and run military museums. YouTube channels are for wannabes unable to do these things professionally and for an audience that thankfully know a bit less about the subjects than the channel maker. And then he replies to me by saying, I do know better, and if you had read my book about the Roman army, it even has an Italian language edition in addition to French, German and English. Then again, you clearly know I speak English and now you're just boasting how many translations your book has got. You wouldn't have been so quick to praise some of the misinformation presented as fact in this video, which, while well known to be fallacious among real historians, is something you seem to have taken seriously. You should really modify the cheek pieces on your Imperial Gallic helmet too, so it conforms supposed to and properly protects your face, like the helmet was designed to. The serious, experienced, more knowledgeable Roman reenactors, living history interpreters are laughing at you. The only reason why you even have a reasonably authentic helmet of this type, made in India for a reasonable price, is because I actually took some of the European-made museum-quality helmets seen in my book to one of the major replica companies there, so they could finally make reasonably accurate copies. Okay, to that I reply, Mr. I am not in any way, shape or form undermining your knowledge on the subject, and I'd be more than happy to read your book and learn from a more experienced researcher. I still think, however, that Invicta channel is a fantastic channel, and I know Julian puts a lot of time in the making of his videos. I praise him, and I will continue to do so, not because I think he's infallible, but because it's absolutely worth of praise that a young man takes so much time to research a subject as complex and deep as Roman history. I am well aware that the helmet I have right now is a cheap replica with a lot of problems, as I have said on my videos already, had you watched them. I have also said I wanted to commission a helmet from the Postelak brothers, but I couldn't use that budget right at this moment. If, as you put it, the serious, experienced, more knowledgeable Roman reenactors, living history interpreters are laughing at me, then I say, let them laugh. In Italian we have a saying, il riso abbonda nella bocca degli stolti, which translates as laughter abounds in the mouths of fools. But I doubt serious researchers laugh at other people just because they have a cheap helmet. Last but not least, videos such as these and mine are not university level of course, but they work marvelously as an entry level for young people to spark an interest in the ancient world. I've always said on my channel that I'm not a professional historian, I'm just a history enthusiast, and I redirect them to people like, I suppose, yourself. Since you have pointed out that we can learn a lot from you, I'd like to point out that a well-mannered approach to discussion is as important, if not more important, to learn if one wishes to attract new people into the beauty of this field of research. If you treat people like they are below you, you can be the most knowledgeable person in the world, no one will want to listen. With this, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter if you have a degree, it doesn't matter if you are extremely knowledgeable, if you treat people like they're below you, if you think that people just need to shut up and listen, you've got it all wrong. I am grateful for each single one of you who choose to put up with me, listen to me and watch my content. Knowledge is supposed to open your mind. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. This researcher slash author also replies to Seferino by saying, do you really think you speak for everyone? I suspect you have never read a scholarly book about this subject and simply believe everything you watch on YouTube. But before YouTube, people learned things from reading books, and my book on this subject has been sold in several museum gift shops, translated into 4 different languages, and has been in publication longer than you have probably been alive. Me. Many people all over the world have informed me it was their inspiration to begin Roman reenactment, and it has been a source for filmmakers, artists, military, figure sculptures, etc. And what I believe was the largest ancient Roman living history event ever held in Italy at the Ostia Archaeology Park. Of the hundreds of reenactors that attended, I was asked to take charge because of my knowledge and accomplishments in this field. I'm sorry, but as a real historian, educator and museum professional for over 40 years, when I see wannabe historian YouTubers spouting erroneous information about a subject I'm very familiar with, I feel compelled to correct them. Imperial Viking joins the fight and he says something very relevant. He might not have 3 university degrees and peer-reviewed publications, but man, this guy is wise. The most cringy rant I've read on YouTube for quite some time. Well, I mean, I can't disagree. If you're a proper historian, you're currently putting people off more than making them excited in any way to read anything you have written. Absolutely. Spot on. Your bitterness and your inability to handle it is frankly pathetic. Well, no need to use words like pathetic, I can't really condone that, but he has a point. This great academic finally responds to me and says, just because a replica Roman helmet is cheap, made in India, does not necessarily mean they're not authentic. I know that, I never said that. When I showed the British archaeologist Mike Bishop, an acknowledged authority on Roman military equipment, the more authentic yet cheap type helmet replica, which I assisted the Indians in making, much like yours, he thought very highly of them. Again, me. Stating they were actually more authentic than those made by European craftsmen at 10 times the price. This was because he knew, as I did, the most real rank-and-file Roman helmets were mass-produced and bore the same hammer mark, crooked riveting and other characteristics of so many real Roman helmets, which the European craftsmen would never leave in helmets which they charged 5 to 10 times as much for. Which I have said again on my videos several times, specifically quoting Bishop, but you don't watch my content, so My criticism was not that you had a cheap Indian helmet, it was because you didn't bother to modify the helmet to fit your face properly, as any real Roman or more savvy and serious Roman reenactor would have done. I refer to the proper alignment of the chickpeas cups. Perhaps you could have just said that without all the rest of name calling and belittling. My criticism of Invicta's program on Roman tunic colors was his not bothering to research the original source material that was so important to his case for Roman tunic color, when it is common knowledge among classical historians that the soldiers on the Nilotic mosaic from Praeneste, which is citing as Romans, are in fact Macedonians and possibly some native Egyptians in the army of King Ptolemy of Egypt from hundreds of years earlier. Exclamation mark. Which again is an interesting point. You could have just said that without needing to attack or insult Invicta. And then you topped it off by praising him for how well researched the presentation was. Yes, because one or two mistakes don't undermine all the rest that there is on his videos. I never said Invicta makes perfect videos. I don't make perfect videos. In fact, find one content creator on YouTube who never makes a mistake. Not gonna happen. But I still do appreciate all the rest of the good information that he shares, which definitely overshadows the occasional mistakes he makes, and hopefully it overshadows the occasional mistake I make. I just have to expect more from people who give themselves flashing stage names like the Invicta or Metatron, as if you fashion yourselves to be some kind of historian superheroes instead of just regular guys who like to make history videos on YouTube. I find it silly that you attack our names. A name is just a name, and perhaps I'll make a dedicated video to this because it happens just too often. It doesn't matter if we call ourselves Scalagrim, or if we call ourselves Metatron, or if we call ourselves Fiery Winged Egyptian Warrior. It's just a YouTube name. With my response to him that he never replied to, I kind of bring forth the main point I'd like to make for this video. Here it is. As I have already told you, I said multiple times on my channel that I'm not a professional historian. My subscribers know that. Your criticism of my YouTube name is uncalled for and petty. I am free to call myself whatever flashy name I want, and so does Invicta or any other channel. You find it silly? Well, you're not the typical age that watches YouTube videos, so that's not designed for you. I'm sure you'll understand. It is in fact an artistic expression of us content creators. Also, note the high level of respect I've showed you in my responses. I have acknowledged your credentials and your deep understanding of these subjects. You instead called me a YouTube wannabe, so you clearly demonstrated you have no respect for me or Julian here. We might have a lot to learn in terms of the history we share, but you surely have a lot to learn in terms of how to be polite and respectful to other people. For your information, since you have multiple times mentioned your credentials, I have a university degree, cum laude, and I'm a doctor in languages and compared cultures from the University of Naples. I hate having to give my credentials because it makes me feel pretentious. But when people call me out as if I'm just a guy who opened a channel and never opened a book in his life, no, I have studied. It's just that I don't think that any piece of paper that I have gives me the right to look down on people. It doesn't matter if you have a degree, it doesn't matter if you're a young guy or a young girl. We share a passion, that's all I care for. I've also had teaching positions in several schools as a teacher and a language expert through the EU funds of university and research. You may see me as just a YouTube wannabe who knows nothing, but your judgment was off. I use YouTube because it's a fantastic tool which makes learning for the youth a lot less boring than any other traditional method. The point I'm trying to draw is that people like this exist. Our audiences are smart people. They understand that YouTube is not gonna give you a university degree. They understand that this is just partly entertainment, partly education. Of course, to my audience, I promise, and I always do, that I will put as much research as possible into my videos. I take a lot of responsibility. I feel the responsibility of the online voice that I have, and when I make a mistake, I say it. I say it publicly. I even made a debunking video on one of my own early videos, and I'm more than happy to say when I stand corrected. We never said that we will never make mistakes, because again, even academics make mistakes. I still think there is a huge value in the way so many people have told me and other YouTubers in the community of the sword that the only reason why they decided to get a university degree in history is because we ignited a passion into them. And there is a lot of value to that. And people like this don't see that value, and it's a shame. Now look at a professor and an academic and see how humble he is as he reaches out to me. It's Professor Lockley, because of the video made on the Yaska. I'm not gonna read the email again because I don't have his permission to do so. I mean, I never asked. But he starts the email like this. Dear Raffaello, thank you so much for replying. I really did enjoy your program. And then he goes on and he says that, so, you know, he liked some of the things I said, but he also has a few other things that he'd like to bring corrections. And then he said we can talk about it. And then he says, I sincerely admire your work and that of other YouTube creators. That's wonderful. It is a humbling experience to be treated so well and with such a degree of respect by a proper university professor whose knowledge is clearly higher than mine. I then replied to him and said, "Hello professor, thank you very much for reaching out. I'm honored by your email, I'm glad you liked my video, and I will be more than happy to learn from you." This is what we should do for the future of this platform. Collaborations with professionals. We don't have to be enemies. The serious and professional academic world and the YouTube educational channels can coexist, and it will be beneficial for both, as long as your mission is to educate more people and make sure that more and more youth will appreciate the beauty of historical research. I'm your ally. But when the only thing you're trying to do is to have people kneel down and worship you because you know so much better and everyone else is just below you, then not only I do not want to collaborate with a person like this, and neither do they want to collaborate with me, of course, but I also say, please learn from people like Professor Lockley. Let me know what you think in the comments below, noble ones. Thank you so much for your opinions and for watching this video. I'm really looking forward to see what you think about all of this situation. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me as always. I appreciate every single one of you, and thank you so much for making this dream of mine, the idea of being able to share my passion with the world, come true. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Go get that degree, but stay humble and stay noble. Goodbye. This video is brought to you by Long Live the Emperor. Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and the title of this video is based on a question that I have been asked quite a few times. Were the ancient Romans evil? Now, it is no secret that I am a Rome fanboy, and there are many out there among you who I'm sure can relate. The thing is that someone who loves the Romans is someone who really likes studying the historical period, loves the art, the architecture, appreciates the organizational skills, phenomenal logistics, the efficacy in battle of the Roman legions, the impressive technological and architectural feats that they have achieved, such as the construction of an extensive system of aqueducts and roads, as well as the construction of large monuments, palaces and public facilities, and learning about their myths, legends and gods. The young are also drawn into appreciating Rome because of the media in the form of popular films and video games. Roman armor looks great, and let's not even get into how authoritative and powerful their language, Latin, sounded. And if you want to hear fluently spoken Latin pronounced with the reconstructed classical pronunciation, then I would refer you to this video that I've recently made, which is in Latin, spoken in a way that will be consistent and very historically accurate with the way they spoke it. Link in the description below. But simply because we like studying, reenacting or playing as the Romans, it doesn't mean that we like everything about them or everything that they did. There are certain things that the Romans did that I would say 99% of modern people would find unacceptable, and some of the things we will examine together on this video are in fact very disturbing. Hence the question, were the ancient Romans evil? But does this question even make sense? This question, in a way, is being fueled by the media, because our mediatic entertainment has got us used to seeing clear distinctions of good and evil in any given story. Films and TV series need, for story writing purposes, a distinct hero and villain. The Romans have been represented as the evil power, for instance in the TV series Barbarians, which shows the story from the perspective of the Germanic tribes, trying to relay a tale of, open quotes, freedom and liberty of noble barbarians against the evil Roman yoke, close quotes. I made 5 videos about the TV series and I ultimately appreciated it, but real history is seldomly that black and white, and in a way we can see a similar dichotomy or contrasting division of roles in Star Wars, with the rebels being the good guys and the Empire being clearly and undeniably evil. Sure, the Romans were brutal, that is a fact. Germania, however, wasn't some sort of free utopia before the arrival of the Romans. Many of the Germanic tribes hated each other, probably as much as they hated the empire. There was no one German nation, and it only took a decade or so for Arminius' confederation to fall apart after a Roman campaign of retribution, and he was then assassinated by members of his own tribe. The case in point being, let's not treat history the way we would treat a story. With all of that in mind, can the question be answered, or is it fundamentally flawed? I'll attempt an unbiased answer, but we need to define a few factors: the subject of our analysis, the Romans, and the determining attribute in question, evil. Clearly by Romans we don't mean the general population. Thinking every single Roman was evil would be silly. You have good people and bad people everywhere. Our analysis deals with the Romans as a civilization and with their central power and authorities. The word evil is where the situation becomes more complicated. Now, probably the term evil isn't the most scientifically appropriate term to be used in this discussion, but I think we can still have an interesting exchange of ideas. Now, normally on this channel we deal with facts, but in this case we aren't talking about facts alone, precisely because we're bringing the term evil into the equation. Rather than dealing with facts alone, we are now dealing with the relations that hold between them. Another important thing is that we need to try and apply suitable standards, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, what is evil? We could define as evil something that is immoral. Yet morality changes over the centuries, and even today, the principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior, the principles of conduct, are conflicted between people who hold different views. The extent to which an action is right or wrong can depend on your view, which is often influenced by your place of origin, your upbringing, level of education, personal experiences, and many other factors, internal and external. It is in fact very hard to define a morality that could be accepted universally by all. Some basic things, sure, but the more complex and detailed it becomes, the more room for different opinions we will have. So probably the best way to define evil is to go to its fundamental core and define it as anything that is harmful to the survival and procreation of an individual in a given group, as that is most likely how morality in its most basic form began in hunter-gatherer societies. For a more linguistic definition, we can say that evil in a general sense is defined by what it is not good, or the opposite or absence of good. Another possible definition could be profound immorality and wickedness. This is all relevant because we are trying to pinpoint an actual definition for evil before we try and attribute it to the Romans, and we have just said that linguistically speaking, the term evil is intertwined with lack of morality, so it is important to understand what morality is and how it originated in order for us to understand what we mean by evil. Collectively, group living requires cooperation and can generate conflict. Social living puts strong evolutionary selection pressures on acquiring social intelligence due to the fact that living in groups has advantages such as protection from predators and the fact that groups in general outperform the sum of an individual's performance. Disgust, one of the basic emotions, may have an important role in certain forms of morality. Disgust is argued to be a specific response to certain things or behaviors that are dangerous or undesirable from an evolutionary perspective. One example is things that increase the risk of an infectious disease, such as spoiled foods, dead bodies, other forms of microbiological decomposition, poor hygiene, and we already covered this in my previous video. But another example of behaviors that may threaten group cohesion or cooperation, such as cheating, lying, and stealing, may generate disgust. Studies have found that such situations activate areas in the brain associated with disgust. Now that we understand the basics of morality, we can expand the term survival into meaning the achievement of a satisfactory, well-lived life, and we can expand the term group to mean humanity. Anything that goes against this, we could term evil for the purposes of our assessment. Alright, in the next section of this video we're going to make a list and talk about all of those negative things that are usually associated with the Romans, such as murder, genocide, slavery and whatnot. We will discuss the definitions, see if they actually did them, and then try to look at them through the eyes of Roman legislation, so Roman law. But before doing that, I'd like to mention the sponsor that made this video possible, Long Live the Emperor. Long Live the Emperor is a graphic novel set in the fantasy realm of Orlan. I've already spoken about this graphic novel on this channel once, and I'm really happy to be able to do that again because it's really good. As you can see, the ebook that you can order has really beautiful art, very colourful, but what really sets it aside, apart from the story, is the fact that it was written by Jaron P. Green, who is both a HEMA practitioner and a noble one. Because of his understanding of historical European martial arts, the combat in this novel is actually realistic, it makes sense, it's based on real combat. And when you look at actual battle scenes, they are based on an overall deep study and understanding of the art of war by Sun Tzu. And when Jaron finished this book, he was only 19, which is commendable. Now, because Jaron is also a noble one, he decided to make a special offer to the noble ones, and the first 300 people to order Long Live the Emperor through the link in the description below will get a 25% off. And by purchasing this novel, you're also supporting my channel because I am getting a percentage of each sale, which I think was important for me to underline. So what are you waiting for? Link in the description below. Take this opportunity to get a very good graphic novel either for you or for your friends at a very good price because of the discount. And by doing so, you will be supporting my work here on YouTube, and with the sales of these ebooks, Jaron is going to complete his suit of armor, which I think of course is something that we can all appreciate. Thank you so much, Jaron, and Long Live the Emperor, for supporting the Metatrons channel. Alright, in this section of the video we're going to talk about the things that of course are negative that are usually associated to the Romans. And we'll try to understand if, first of all, they actually did it, because not all the things that are usually associated to the Romans are real, and we'll put some context so that we try and understand why certain things were done, and most importantly how they were done. And even though some of the things that we're going to describe now are undeniably horrible and evil, we also have to understand that some of these things do have a place in the actual period as they are contextualized in their time. Let's begin with the first one: violence. Were the ancient Romans violent? Yes, the ancient Romans were a violent civilization. There is no doubt about it. What's important to say though is, again, this needs to be contextualized to its time. In fact, it's probably one of those, we could say, accusations towards the Romans that holds less water. Everyone was violent back then. And to a certain degree, people are very violent even today. The concept of living a life completely free of violence is an absolute beautiful goal that we can have as a human civilization, and hopefully as we reach levels of type 1 civilization or perhaps even type 2 civilization, then we will have found a way to live our lives completely rid of violence. It isn't the case now. It definitely wasn't the case in the 20th century with the 2 world wars that we had, and so it clearly wasn't the case in the times of classical antiquity. The ancient world was very brutal, and it was common that only the strongest survived. As we take the traditional date 21st of April 753 BC as the foundation and beginning of Rome, we know that the Romans were originally a warrior society that valued strength and courage. At this time, things such as compassion were considered a sign of weakness. The empire was a military dictatorship. There is no other way to look at it if we really want to be realistic about it. If you tried to fight against the empire, if you were a threat to the power and institution, the authorities will have terminated you. But even during the Republic, and even before during the Kingdom, things weren't all flowery and dandy. Rome expanded. And that is one of the characteristics of most forms of classical governmental bodies. Now, of course, there is a difference between a kingdom and an empire, and I will dedicate a full video onto this, but generally speaking, we know that the Romans expanded through war. which means violently. But when Rome was created at the very beginning of its birth, you have to imagine that it was surrounded by ferocious lions. Those were the powers that Rome had around it. Any town or starting civilization that had decided to go for peace and love at the time would have been either conquered or wiped out. Of course, you could argue that then perhaps they could have just defended themselves and they didn't need to wage wars of conquest. But the problem is that if you think about the First Punic War, the Second Punic War, when Rome and Carthage fought, and then ultimately Rome winning that fight, if Rome hadn't grown, if Rome hadn't expanded its territories, becoming more powerful and stronger, Carthage would have conquered it, and the Romans would have been wiped out once again. So unfortunately for classical governments, it was a need to expand. Given. Big fish eat little fish, as simple as that. Another important thing is that a strong economy is the basis of a powerful and strong army. Not armor, not weapons, not tactics. These things are incredibly important ingredients, but without a stable economical backbone, no army will ever win a war. I know that this might sound as, well, everybody did it, so it's okay, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we need to contextualize it in its time. Also, the Romans' love for violence has been exasperated quite a lot. For example, gladiatorial combat and gladiators fighting are always shown as an example of the Romans being bloodthirsty and just enjoying random violence, but that's been exaggerated, as I say, because the majority of gladiatorial fights were not to death. It was a form of combat entertainment, and we do have forms of combat entertainment in our day. I mean, UFC or any sort of MMA, it's quite brutal, and perhaps from the point of view of people 600 years from now or 1,000 years from now, those would look barbaric, violent and completely useless, which means that we are really not in any position to judge the Romans for enjoying gladiatorial combat. Now, given there were some extremes, such as slaves having to fight against beasts and being devoured by those beasts, but we do have records that underline the fact that even the condemnations of the Christians, for example, during the reign of Nero, were frowned upon by the population, and they thought that they were exaggerated. And bringing back the discussion on the gladiators, we do know that gladiatorial combat was expensive, training gladiators was very expensive, and so the idea of thousands and tens of thousands of gladiators were killed every single time that there was a game is absolutely moronic as a statement, because it just would collapse the entirety of the ludus, the schools where the gladiators were training, the champions that people loved to see. So yes, it was a violent form of entertainment, but it wasn't as deadly. Occasionally you would have people die, but it wasn't as deadly as people think. And we do have violent forms of entertainment in our day and age. The next point is murder. Now, we can agree that murder is a horrible thing. The thing is that it really also depends on the context, meaning that murdering another individual is always a horrible thing, but you have to imagine that if it's a person who is just randomly killing someone else, then yes, that's a crime, it's an evil thing, and the person needs to be put away. However, if it's a father defending his daughter from a criminal who wants to kidnap his kid, is trying to kidnap his kid, and the father starts fighting against this criminal, he kills him, I would say that's a completely different thing. And then again, it very much will depend on the context. Self-defense justifies murder in certain cases. In fact, it probably doesn't even count as murder. But the idea of killing someone else really depends. And in the case of the Romans, they did have very precise laws on how to deal with murder, so it was considered a crime. Now, of course, when you say, a lot of people say, yeah, but the Romans murdered the populations that they conquered. And I understand that from our perspective, that looks like a really difficult thing to understand, but then again, look at the 20th century. How many people died during the First and Second World War? Thing is, though, that people die all the time and are killed all the time in war. It's a horrible thing, but unfortunately it is part of human society. And as I said at the very beginning of this section, hopefully one day we will get rid entirely of wars, but right now wars are there. Even in the 20th century we have had many wars, and even though the concept of killing during war is a horrible thing, we can all agree to that, we can also say that the soldiers who had to kill in order to stop Hitler having to kill his soldiers, in that case we understand it as a casualty, something that is part of war. And from the point of view of the Romans, conquering and expanding was a necessity. It was something you had to do, and therefore, even though I'm not excusing it, I am just contextualizing it in its time. Slavery. Did the Romans have slaves? Yes, they had a lot of slaves. Everybody else did, I'd like to underline. It is very, very few countries, we shouldn't really use the term.
This is me. And these are some of my coworkers. Tonight, we're on an epic adventure. Defending a village from an army of dog monsters and trying not to get ourselves killed. Welcome to the magical world of Dungeons and Dragons, the best game I've ever played. Chapter 1. What the f*** is D&D?
Be right back just a moment. Alright. Sorry for the background noise. Apologies for the background noise. I was AFK and I was just, socializing a bit before I come back to drawing. I love the way that it turned out, but this is basically just going to be like flat, and I'm just going to do the flat colors and then move on to the next thing, the next sketch if I have enough time. Oh, hi Steelhorn, nice to see you again. I saw another new viewer, didn't know it was you. Anyway, So that'll be it for now. Enjoy the video while I draw.
D&D is a tabletop role-playing fantasy game. You and your friends sit around a table and pretend to be heroes going on an epic adventure together.
This is a role-playing game. It takes place entirely in our collective imagination.
Every D&D game is run by a DM, Dungeon Master. You arrive at a small village on the outskirts of the forest. The villagers watch you nervously as you enter. They seem tired, worried. The DM is the main storyteller in D&D. They create and describe the adventure the heroes go on, giving them goals to accomplish and rewards to motivate them. The mayor of this town wants someone to investigate strange sounds coming from a nearby abandoned mine. He's offering 1,000 gold pieces to anyone brave enough to take the job. And while it might look like the heroes and DM are playing against each other, they're actually playing with each other. The goal of D&D isn't to kill the other players. There's actually no winning in D&D. The goal is to hang out with your friends and act like weirdos together. So the DM's job is to create an adventure that's exciting, fun, and challenging, and the hero's job is to work together to survive those challenges and explore the world the DM has created. Which brings me to my favorite part of D&D. Creating a hero.
Actually, my favorite part of D&D is creating a world. It's like I'm the DM basically, so I just go ahead and just say, I just go like this. Check out this new world I have. You're gonna like it. Next thing you know, I'm probably killing half the party because I'm such a sadistic bastard. Hey, wait, where are you going? Where are you going, Steel? What? What? What happened? What the dog doing? Alright, I'm just chatting a bit on Discord, so sorry for that. I'll play the video while I do it on my business.
Before you can start adventuring in D&D, you need to create your very own hero. Using the D&D handbook, you pick a race, human, elf, dwarf, etc., and you pick a class, basically your job. Fighter, wizard, rogue.
I play Amelia, human, warlock.
One Shoe, rock gnome, sorcerer.
I play Isla, druid, elf.
Harriet, tiefling, rogue.
Blaze, dragonborn, paladin.
Once you've decided what you want to be, you fill out one of these bad boys, a character sheet, which is just a piece of paper that keeps track of your strengths and weaknesses, stuff like that. That character sheet is important, but way more important is what makes your hero unique. Deciding what your hero looks like.
She has a septum piercing, violet eyes.
She looks like a devil, like a fun devil. Think about Predator. Think Predator in your mind.
How they dress.
Big sorcerer, floppy hat on.
A rotting werewolf pelt.
She doesn't wear a lot of clothing.
And whatever little quirks make them stand out.
I hand out pamphlets like a Jehovah's Witness. I carry a warhammer that's as big as my body.
I have a demonic imp who follows me around.
And what's her name?
Mother Teresa.
You also create a motivation for your hero, something that calls them to adventure. It can be as lofty as rooting out evildoers, or as simple as
getting treasure.
Actually, I had an idea for an even more sadistic campaign, and basically it went like this. I'm not gonna spoil too many of the details. Well, I may as well do, but it's a really cool idea. Um, so wait, where the fuck? Ah, shit. There's nobody here. Ah, man. Ah, crap. I hope there's somebody here, but let's just pretend there's somebody here. Alright, so let me just check just in case. I really need to be sure. I don't wanna. Alright, let's check the light stream. Let me just check just in case. I really need to be sure. Crap. Yeah. Yep, nobody's here apparently. That just sucks. I'll just wait until somebody comes back. Yeah.
And you start playing. You pass through the decide simple as
Getting treasure.
once you've decided who you'll be, the DM weaves your stories together and you start playing. You pass through the dark entryway of the abandoned mine. The passageway is narrow. Suddenly, you see a dark figure in the corner, and you keep playing for a long, long time. Playing D&D. I know it seems really complicated, and this thick-ass rulebook doesn't help, but at its core, all of D&D is just 3 steps. Describe, decide, roll. The DM describes what's happening. In the corner of the mineshaft, you find a sleeping goblin. He's laying down on a pile of coins. He doesn't seem to have noticed you. What do you do? The heroes...
Must have been my imagination. Yeah, it's a Skyrim joke. You're not gonna get it.
decide what they want to do.
I want to steal the coins.
Excellent. And then the player rolls one of these, a 20-sided dice.
Is it dice or die?
I don't know. Singular dice. Historically, dice is the plural of die. Die is singular, you're right. I'll try it again earlier on. And then the player rolls one of these, a 20-sided die, to find out if they succeeded or failed. The higher you roll, the better.
I rolled a 2?
Not good. While sneaking, you knock over a pile of rocks and the goblin shoots up, wide awake. Then the cycle starts over. The goblin grabs his club, looks at you and yells, "Intruder!" What do you do? That's D&D in a nutshell. And it's that second step, decide, that makes the game so special. In most games, how you play is limited by the options the game designers give you. Run this direction, fight this thing, save this princess, essentially being railroaded down a story that someone else wrote for you. In D&D, what you do is totally up to you. Maybe you panic and try to run away. Maybe you draw your weapon and prepare to fight. Or maybe you try to trick the goblin.
Okay, I look at the goblin and I say, "We'll come in peace, as friends." 17?
The goblin lowers his club, raises his eyebrow and says, "Friends?" The DM sets the stage, but once the game starts, no one person controls where the story goes. Session after session, the DM builds an adventure that reflects the hero's choices. That goblin you tricked last week might tell you about a dragon's lair nearby. That dragon's lair may contain a valuable treasure you can steal. And stealing that treasure might attract the attention of an evil wizard who wants to use it for his own schemes. As the game goes on, the decisions you make will shape the world you play in.
We won a karaoke competition.
Close a rift to the nine hells.
We were slaughtering this band of peasants. It was a total misunderstanding.
D&D doesn't just give you the freedom to choose, it asks you to own those choices. Before long, you might find yourself thinking less like you and more like the hero you're trying to be. Role-playing. All of us are role players. We go through our lives playing different parts for the people around us. Some we get to choose. Video producer, podcaster, coworker. Some we have no control over. Black, female, queer. Even with our friends, we can fall into patterns of behavior that eventually become expectations. The wisecracker, the cool girl, the shy one. Roles we're so used to playing we don't even think of them as roles anymore, they're just us. D&D gives you permission to be something different, to surprise yourself. And that can be really scary. When you do something in D&D,
We come in peace.
you're trusting everyone at the table to take you seriously. And you're trusting the other players to have your back.
I pull flour out of my hair, hand it to him, and give him a wink.
I produce a tiny rainbow over Harriet's head.
Mother Teresa does her best goblin impression and says, "It's cool, they're with me."
To be honest, I think my favorite class in D&D has to be the wizard, simply because he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Although usually I prefer to play as she's, but sometimes I mean, on very rare occasions I don't mind playing as male characters, but for the most part I guess it's the only reason I would play as a male character is because I just love the idea of role playing as a freaking long bearded wizard and all that. That just looks amazing. But yeah, other than that, it's the wizard. He can cast all magic spells and do all kinds of crazy shit while he's at it.
16.
18.
Natural 20.
The goblin looks at you more relaxed and says, "Friends!" That shared vulnerability is what makes D&D different from any other game you play with your friends. We can spend our whole lives wandering alone through the corridors of our minds. D&D asks you to wander together, to believe for just a few hours that there's more to us than what meets the eye. More silliness, more warmth, more bravery, and yeah, just a little more magic. Should you play D&D? D&D is ridiculous. But when I ask my friends why they play D&D, they don't talk about the monsters or the dungeons. They talk about how the game makes them feel.
It just feels so freeing. I'm not thinking about, I have to do this tomorrow, or I need to take care of this at home. It just kind of brings your inner child back out.
Nobody makes fun of anybody. Nobody feels self-conscious about it. The older that you get, the more expectations people have of you. D&D, there aren't any expectations. I can just be free.
I feel like the rest of the world doesn't matter. I'm always super stoked to play. It's a fun, really creative way to connect with each other, and I think it's made us really grow closer.
The way that you look at the people you were just playing with is really different than other people in the real world because you've engaged in something so collaborative and imagined together.
The point of D&D is obviously adventures and we're world building together.
Honestly, I think the only reason I ended up liking D&D is because one, my mom introduced me to it. She talked about how she used to play as this drow rogue, and it was amazing. It was the best thing ever. Maybe I'll make a remake of that character one day, but it was amazing. And the second thing is that there were these legends that you can talk about it, which it's not just the drow, but it's also the other shit that happens. It's pretty cool, pretty amazing. Also, the fact that it influenced video games as we know it. But I guess from what you can tell, I like D&D not only because of what they said, but also because of how much of a historical significance it has on a lot of different things, right? Everybody kind of grew up with it one way or another, and heck, we may as well even play a weird variation of it. RuneScape, Skyrim. They're all essentially just they can trace their ancestor back to D&D. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, now that I think about it, it would actually be fucking cool to do a Skyrim campaign. Oh my god, that is amazing. Oh, I'm already just mind blown by that. Holy shit, that is cool.
But the real point of D&D is like, you're in this bubble with these people and you're entirely focused on each other and remembering all the reasons that you like spending time with their characters, but also spending time with them as human beings.
If you look past the wizards, past the dungeons and magical creatures, D&D is a game about the people you play with. A game where everyone agrees to bring their weirdness and creativity to the table. To help build a world that belongs to all of you. A world shaped by your triumphs, your defeats, your personality quirks, and your stupid inside jokes. A world that could not have existed if you and your friends hadn't sat down at a table one day and said, "Let's play." Believe it or not, this video is not sponsored by D&D. We're just huge nerds. But if you're interested in playing, you should check out the D&D starter set. It comes with a pre-made campaign, character sheets, a mini rulebook, and dice.
And if you're interested in seeing more videos about games, check out our sister site, Polygon. They have this cool new series called Being Zone, which talks about how games shape and reflect our culture.
Killed it that time.
Ugh.
That's a wrap, baby.
Hello, I'm Jenna. I have a master's degree in media and culture, which means for the last 5 years I've been studying horror media and video game cultures. What does that mean? Well, basically it means I'm one of a handful of people in America who's authorized to talk to you about zombies. No, wait, come back. I know, listen, I know. You're thinking over the last 85 years those
Give me a second.
So zombie stories have gotten a little bit played out. But that's only because you're not thinking about it through the eyes of a media theorist. We're actually in the midst of an entirely new cycle of zombie media, and it's really interesting. Let me explain. A cornerstone truth about horror is that it reflects the crises of the culture it's made in. Generally speaking, the more cultural anxiety there is, the more horror media is produced and consumed. But horror movies rarely deal with crises head-on. Cinema relies on structuring absences, a concept pioneered by sociologist and film theorist Annette Kuhn. Movies often skirt around the very historical events that give them meaning. So a movie that's reacting to, say, fears about Cold War communist infiltration won't mention the Cold War at all. Instead, it will be about alien pod people with sinister intentions. The fear is projected onto a metaphor. This is why a zombie story told in 1932 will differ from a zombie story told in 1968 or 2018. The set dressing stays roughly the same, half-dead people lurching about, but the differences are a reflection of society at that time, like a snapshot of somebody's nightmare. So even though zombies have existed in American media for over 80 years now, each cycle of zombies is vastly different. White Zombie, the earliest appearance of zombies in a full-length movie, was about the supposed superiority of Western imperialism, similar to what you'd see in H.P. Lovecraft's writing during the same time period. Night of the Living Dead was a little bit about the Vietnam War and a little bit about the American Civil Rights Movement. Dawn of the Dead was about rampant, mindless consumerism. The Serpent and the Rainbow was about racist and imperialist American propaganda placing blame on Haiti for the AIDS epidemic. And post 9/11 zombie movies were a reaction to Americans remembering that war isn't just something that happens elsewhere in the world. Across cinematic genres, America became obsessed with imagery of half-destroyed buildings and rubble, and dust-laden cities and people running in the streets. We had a whole subculture of survivalists arise from these fears. Now, all of those examples are cinematic. The conversation gets a little bit stickier when you're talking about video games because zombies are so often a mechanic and less of a metaphor. Zombies are the perfect enemy. They're endless, easily customizable in design and strength, and there's no real moral quandary to slaughtering them en masse. But step back and look at the trend in video game plots, and you'll see an interesting change. In both video games and cinema over the last 8 years or so, we've moved away from the post-9/11 total apocalypse society is over stories.
We've taken back the southern seaboard, and we're winning.
Modern zombie media is struggling with the fact that Americans thought the world was going to end, and then it didn't. Everybody picked back up and continued living. They built lives and started families and wanted to tell stories about that instead. Part of this change in video games goes hand in hand with the so-called dadification of the medium, in which many developers and the perceived audience of the games have grown up and are reaching a child-rearing age. So the stories they wanted to tell involve growing up and starting to have children. BioShock went from daughters and daddies are terrifying to I have a daughter, she changed me. Kratos went from conquering Olympus in 2005 to having a kid in 2018. And more importantly, you have stories about father-daughter style relationships in zombie apocalypses, like The Last of Us and Telltale Games' The Walking Dead. These aren't stories about survivors just trying to make it to the next checkpoint. They're about finding a community to keep each other safe. The State of Decay franchise is a great example of this. Just the title clues you into the fact that this isn't like other zombie games. There's a state, a location-based, organized community. These games are a natural evolution of the zombie story. Both State of Decay 1 and 2 allow you to play not as one character, but as anyone in a community. You are not a survivor, you are a community of survivors, and your goal is to strengthen that community. To quote Polygon's own Colin Campbell, I am me, but also I am them. A part of the overarching plot of State of Decay 2 involves finding a cure for a specific zombie bite, a mechanic that shifts the idea of infection from the inevitable endpoint of all survivors to a bad situation that is not a hindrance to our longevity as a species. That's why it's interesting that one of the teasers for The Last of Us 2 includes a leader using shorthand slang to meter out internal justice.
Clip her wings.
A sure sign of community, however warped. Incidentally, I believe the next big trend in horror will be stories about cults, but that's another video. It's also probably part of the reason building has become such a popular mechanic in video games, even in genres that don't normally feature them. But that's also part of this broader cultural shift. You build things and have children because you have hope about the future. And that's all good news. It means that we, or at least our media, or at least the people who make our media, are feeling hopeful about the future too. A lot of apocalyptic media was starting
to feel more like a wish than a fear. And wanting the world to be destroyed so you can play out large-scale power fantasies is dark. Like, that's some dark shit. And that's what we've been living with.
Well, we're starting to want to tell stories about moving on and rebuilding and getting on with our lives. And you know what? We deserve it. If you're anything like me, this is a big relief. So take a break. Shoot some zombies. Build a house. You've earned it.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you like and subscribe to Polygon? There's all sorts of other offerings that we have on the table. Like this thing. Maybe this thing.
Justin.
Oh no.
You know what time it is. Oh, yes.
No.
Imagine that he was shaking his head. Yes.
No.
It's time to kill your favorite game.
This is my favorite game. Why are you doing this?
We're going to take it and we're going to put it right in the garbage.
Don't put my game in the garbage.
We're putting Oblivion right in the garbage.
Any game at Oblivion.
You might be watching this thinking like, oh, really? Oblivion? Didn't you do Skyrim? Oh, that was like the second one we did like 2.5 years ago. I tried a lot of games, got a lot of recommendations from people. I got on the Twitter. I was like, hey, what's up? And people were like, Star Trek Online. I tried Star Trek Online. It's not right. It doesn't fit.
Is it fun?
Star Trek Online?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. If you like
Seems like it'd be sweet with phasers and
if you like tricorders and shit and tribbles, all that jazz. But it's not right. I've tried a couple others. NBA 2K16 got all psyched for that because of the face camera stuff, but it doesn't have the face camera stuff on PC. This is a week of constant disappointment. So I'm returning back to my roots.
And disappointing me by ruining my favorite game.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Can I just say, this game looks worse than I remember?
Yeah.
I don't know if we're playing on like a crazy low resolution or something,
No,
but this not good.
This is good settings. The High Elves look like, I mean, this is what they thought High Elves should look like back in the day.
Nah, like a Bond villain. He looks like one of Goldfinger's.
He looks like Goldfinger.
Henchmen.
He looks like a Goldfinger. All right, I'm already seeing a problem, and that is that it's going to be really hard for us. Ooh, that's fun. It's going to be really hard for us to stick with our no middle sliders stricture.
Why is that?
Well, because you can see whenever you move one, whenever you move one, it moves the others.
Okay, well, we can't be blamed for that. It's like, you know what it's trying, like it's
like, are you sure? It's like Clippy.
Judgy,
it's like Clippy is popping in like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to make a human face? Let me just.
I see you're trying to create a monster. Can I help with that? I can't. I can get in the way though.
This is a drastic slider. We need a word for like the sliders that actually do like really dope shit. Because a lot of sliders are just like little tweaks, and sometimes they completely transmogrify you into another living human being.
Can we call it the electric slide?
The electric slide is exactly what we call it. Oh, see, another one.
Wow. I mean, those are very different people.
Two different people.
Very different.
This guy's name is Gregory, but this guy's name is Marcus.
Someday game technology will evolve to a point where you can like animate, like to make 2 keyframes, and their faces just constantly be animating between the 2.
Hello, my name is Marcus.
Those eyes have seen some. Oh, look at those sad
old eyes.
Sad Gary Shandling eyes. Sad.
Yeah, I know we've talked about like that Gusher's face when your head turns into like an apple, but that's really what we're going for here.
Now you are for this run, you are not breaking the game with code, right?
Are you fucking kidding me? Of course I am.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna throw this shit in my witch's cauldron. Mix up something nasty. Woo!
Hey, welcome to tonight's show. I'm back.
No, come on.
Come on.
Not fair.
Todd Howard had control of these sliders.
Yeah.
He could have stopped this.
He was like, let's stop him here and here. And it's like, Todd, that's
Todd, they're gonna find a workaround.
What is he even doing? Todd, you put face kegels in the game. This is all going very good. I gotta be honest, I was a little worried that, oh my God. No. I was worried at first that Oblivion would not be a good candidate, but now I think it might be the best candidate. Discuss.
It looks like he's been reading, like it looks like a commercial for your local library, right? Like watch.
Oh yeah. Learning is power. Books are knowledge. Knowledge is strength. When the war comes, it's the only currency that matters is knowledge. I don't know what to do with these other sliders. I don't need. Do we want? Oh my God.
Whoa. I'm not complaining. I feel like this thing that we're making is going to be too pleasant for the landscape. Like he does not. Look at him. Look at that face. Imagine him putting a dagger to your throat.
He's getting really, really, really happy.
Yeah. Whoa. Julia Roberts, watch out. There's
Justin!
a new style in Hollywood.
You gotta stop throwing shade at celebs. You know how many watch this series.
She's beloved for her wide smile. I'm not throwing any shade. If I want to throw shade, I'd bring up, like, I was trying to think of a bad Julia Roberts movie.
Yeah, kind of not to be done. Good God. He looks like the fucking moon jazz guy from the McDonald's commercials. I'm really into this face. It's arguably one of the least monstrous we've made. It's just really chill.
Yeah, I think anything you can do to diminish the nose, actually, because like that's really working for me right now. You kind of got it sunken in a little bit. Maybe just like a nose is so clearly not his thing.
Look at him! Look at Bananaman!
They're haters.
His name is Roger Bananaman. Oh my God! Look at that! That's perfect.
Perfect. It looks like he's got it looks like one of those optical illusions. Like, can you see the other face in this face? It's like, no, I just have the one face, actually.
Is he a beautiful young woman or an older lady?
Exactly. No, I'm both.
Is he a lamp or is he two people kissing? Holy shit. Oh, we've embarrassed him.
Oh, that's fucking good. Wow, that's choice. Now he's on coke. Time to eat this thug.
I would love to eat this thug and get his potassium up in me. I think we gotta call him first name Bananaman. Or Chiquita Dave.
Chiquita, Dave. We could get in some legal hot water.
Oh, I don't think they watch.
I know for a fact they do.
What are nares? And what's your nasolabia? Oh, way lighter. Yes!
Yeah!
We've set him free. Oh, he was in prison. He was a prisoner of his own eyebrows.
Eat the man with the banana for a face. I gotta say, Chiquita Dave, the man for a banana with a face, looks like an SNL character created specifically for a week when Paul Reiser is guest hosting. And he's like, hey, we got a great new character for you.
Chiquita Dave.
Chiquita Dave's a man with a banana for a face.
Is Chiquita Dave too close to Toucan Dan? In terms of like...
I mean, have they been spending a lot of time together? Sure. Are they too close? It's hard to say. I think. No. Yes. Oh, God, that's good.
Oh, my God. It's treating me very right.
You know, the look on his face is just one of fucking, like, grim acceptance. Like, well, whatever you gentlemen think is right.
You're the real humans. I'm just Chiquita Dave.
I'm ones and zeros in here.
You like that short shit? You like... No, short shit just looks so great. Looks like a Metroid back there.
It's terrible. Ah!
Did you forget? Age. Oh, what? No! Undo!
Ugh. This one's gone bad. Time to turn this one into no-bake cookies. Don't like it. Mix him up with some oats. He's Dunsky.
Are you ready to explore the lands with this chill-ass banana?
Yes, I am, Griffin.
How you spell Chiquita?
Do you want the banana? Feel it down.
When was the last time you played Oblivion?
Oh God, it's been a grip.
You remember that dude? The dude that yells at you every time you start playing? He's like,
yeah.
oh, you're in prison, huh? That must suck for you.
What's up now? Did you see this coming? Oh, he was way stronger.
Yeah, he's very, very strong.
He wasn't just talking a big game. He really
No,
had...
he's very good. That did it.
Whoa, that did it.
Let's get back in my cell.
No, us? Hey, this...
No, impossible!
Hey, this guy had a heart attack.
Hey, you guys gotta help this guy. I think he's really sick. Do you remember Patrick Stewart's character name?
No. Like I said, it's been a long time since I played it.
It's Grandpa Piss.
I had forgotten.
You forgot his name was Grandpa Piss. I always thought that was like a really distracting part of the game. Like the rest of it's all like high fantasy and like the beautiful mind creation of Todd Howard and like
some sort of Catskills or like a vaudeville character.
Like they approached Patrick Stewart like, we got a character for you that we need you to voice. He's like, what's his name? Like, oh, it's Grandpa Piss, and yet he still agreed to do the part.
He agreed to it. The softening. Soft man, okay.
Surely you remember the tragic death of Captain Renault.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see if we can't turn back the clock. Yes, we did it!
Nice.
Oh, God, no! What? Look at that look in her eyes. Oh, my God, I'm dead?
How long have I been dead? For like years?
This is official business. Do not interfere.
Same old Captain Renault.
You gotta let us in. Griffin, can I want to suggest something to you.
It just told me to search her body. This is grisly.
It's like he's shoving her out of the... Okay, now you didn't get the weapon again.
I did. I picked it up very quickly. You just didn't see it.
Okay, got it.
This door is not locked. Guaranteed.
You're just gonna break it.
Oh my God. Look at these speedrun tactics. You see that shit? That was a frame-perfect rat smash. Come on down.
No, you're fine.
Oh shit, did I hit Softboy? Softboy, get up. Get up. What are you doing? Oh shit. I hit him so hard he was having a fit.
Hey, he's back. He's cool.
You good, Softboy? Yeah, you're good. The lover. Duh. Now I'm gonna use Kiss on Grandpa Piss. You already see these two other guards get totally freaked out?
Yeah. Oh no!
Which one's which?
Classic conundrum.
Well, he isn't voiced by Patrick Stewart, which might actually give it away.
And he has no will of his own. The Emperor is not in any danger.
The Emperor, I am the god of this world.
I can literally make another Emperor if you want one.
Fuck that. We can make 6.
Oh man, you should do that when the assassins are around. They'll have no idea what to do.
Come on.
Hello. Hello. Engage. Engage.
T. Earl. Gray. Hot.
Where? No, man. It's gone.
I'm gonna make you a little bit more evasive, Grandpa Piss.
Weep. They are never gonna catch that fool.
Oh, Tiny Piss. Oh, that happens in this game too, huh?
Huh. It's an engine issue.
Yeah, they get all noodly, huh?
It's happening here too. No less disconcerting. What'd you do to our king? How did you turn our king to taffy?
Yes, I'm a barbarian. You got it in one. You got it in one, soft man.
You look.
Well, I think I'm satisfied with this so far, so I'm just gonna save it and be done with the stream for today. See you guys tomorrow.